record this computer. Alrighty, it is going. I'm gonna press record on this. Michael, I'm gonna just for this, just to have, I'm gonna record my audio file just in case anything happens. But I'm gonna press record on that too.
All right.
Cool. Everyone good to go?
Yep.
Alrighty. You need to count me
3,
down?
2, 1, recording.
Alrighty. Come one, come all. Welcome back to Chiowa. We are in episode 70. It's a special one, folks. As always, I am Michael Olson alongside my good buddy, Michael Stampa. We are joined by reoccurring guest, friend of the program, Jacob Matthew Cartmel. How we doing, fellas?
What's up, everybody?
How's
Mr. Stampa, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
Same old.
I'm cold. My basement's freezing. So I got a nice blanket.
Well, I'm happy
Very
for you. I mean, it's winter
Aw.
time. You know, we're cold. We're in the Midwest. It's cold here. Jacob's out in LA, probably just roasting. You know, getting
I'm
his
good,
tan
man.
on.
I'm
He's an
chilling.
LA
It's
boy now.
60. Yeah, it's 60, bro. Like outside the smog and the COVID in the air.
Other than those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, other than it being the COVID convection oven that it is, you know, I'm doing good.
Awesome, man. Well, I mean, you've had a lot going on in your life. We're going to unpack a lot of it. A lot of exciting things going on. You know, 2020 ended. You had some awesome stuff happen. We're going to unpack that. I guess it's been a minute since you've been on, Jake. If you maybe want to just give 30 seconds, a minute, kind of who you are, what you do, kind of why you're on the podcast today, kind of give us an intro as to kind of who Jacob Matthew is.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Jacob Matthew. For some people listening to it, I'm Jake Cartmel, not Jacob Matthew. But I am long time buds with Michael Olson and Michael Stampa, known each other since we were kids growing up in Geneva, Illinois. So just kind of whoop whoop, let's go Vikings. I guess,
Vikings.
yeah, you know, whatever. Yeah, I was not on the team, but you know, go Vikings. And
Hey, you were on the ultimate team. You for sure.
I was
were
on
part
the
of that.
ultimate team. Hell yeah.
And the
Get outta
freshman
here
year
with
soccer
that
team, dude,
bullshit.
starting goalie.
Bro, you know what? Go Vikings. Never mind. Now that I think about it. I really just been longtime buddies with these guys, and I know we've been friends for forever, but also do followed you guys in your running and your endurance stuff, and you know, love it. And I kind of graduated and basically became a filmmaker. So I live in Los Angeles now, making films, and I don't know. That's kind of who I am, I suppose, at this point. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question for you. I've
Yeah.
wanted to ask you this for a long time, and I may have asked you at Cole's wedding when we were drunk, but I don't remember. Why the name change? Obviously, you didn't actually change your name, right? Why are you listed professionally as Jacob Matthew and not Jacob Cartmel?
That's a great question. So it's a very simple answer in that before I worked in film, in a interesting, long, deep dive of a conversation, I used to do music, and actually used to work in really big churches doing music. So I actually used to be a pastor, and I used to do that. I do not do that anymore, and have changed my views significantly since I used to do that stuff. And so that's a long, deep philosophical and theological conversation we could get into. But basically, if you Google Jake Cartmel, music videos of me come up. Do you know what I mean?
Got it.
And so I just was already I wasn't publicly known, but I was a up and coming music guy in that world. And so when I went get into film, two things. One is I just didn't want there to be SEO confusions with that. And also it's just not really a part of my life anymore. Two, I didn't know, and this actually relevantly is becoming the case. I figured that at some point in my career, I'd start making more controversial content, and which I now have. And
that's okay.
And my dad is just a really well-known psychologist that goes by Dr. Cartmel, and I also wanted to be considerate to his career, and didn't want his son who my dad and I have a great relationship, but it just kind of made sense to do that. And then also Matthew, which is my middle name, just Jacob Matt. My name is Jacob Matthew Cartmel. That's my whole name. Jacob, even when I was a little kid, Jacob was I used to go by, and then I got called Jacob in time. But Matthew is the name of my mom's brother who died in a plane crash when she was really young. Actually, for those, I don't know if people are watching this, but when my mom was a kid, her brother and dad died in a plane crash. And there was a couple things recovered from the plane crash. One was my grandfather's wedding ring, and one was a necklace. So I wear the things that were recovered from the plane crash. That's my ice, You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
But I,
That's amazing.
but
I
anyway,
never knew
so
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So my wedding ring has always just been the one that was big. Like it's got scratches on it, bro. Like plane crash
Damn.
scratches on it. Yeah,
Damn.
dude. But anyway, so Matthew is like my mom's, past brother's name. Who like I also kind of feel like I get to like carry on a life that he didn't get to live a little bit. So there's the mixed reasons why I changed from Jake Cartmel to Jacob Matthew professionally.
Wow, I was a much more thought out and much more significant meaning behind it than I ever expected. That was a good answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought you were just like, meh, change it up a little bit.
It also is a great name,
It all
by the
makes
way.
sense.
Jacob
It is.
Jacob Matthews. It sounds great.
It is.
Yeah,
It does.
it also had that sound that I was like, if I'm going to become a film producer, like work in film, I didn't know what my career was going to become at the beginning anyway. Jacob Matthews sounded like a strong name like that. And then it also kind of did some nice emotional stuff for my family. So that was it.
Nice. Awesome. Well, you mentioned it.
Love it.
You said you're a film producer, doing a lot of stuff, worked on a lot of projects, but the one we want to talk about specifically today is one that just came out, one that, Michael and I and all of your buddies, and I'm sure all of your family, but I know I can say, loved it. Super proud of you, man. But it's called Minimalism. Less is now. It was a minimalist.
Correction.
Less is now.
The Minimalists.
Correct.
Less is now.
Excuse me. Yes. The minimalist.
Third time's the charm.
Less is now. Correct.
I wrote it down wrong.
I had it
so
incorrect
that's my
on the
bad.
Trello, the cards we use, and I had it correct on my note sheet. Read the wrong one. Hand up.
That's amazing.
My bad. But yes, the minimalist. Less is now. It was incredible. We'll want to hear about it. Obviously, we'll get into the actual content of it, but want to hear about kind of the behind the scenes, how it came to fruition, how it came to your company, and kind of, Mike, where would you like to start in asking Jake questions about the minimalist?
So my first question, let's start from scratch. How did you get into film? And how did you land? You don't have to dive into everything, but how did you land with Booklight? How did you land in your role? And what is your role?
Yeah. So maybe actually even helpful that I mentioned that I used to be in music. So I used to like do music, like I said, and I had a buddy I'd met when I first moved to Philadelphia, who kind of, when I didn't really want to do that stuff anymore, I was trying to figure out what my career change, like life change was going to be. So I started bartending. I started waiting tables. I was kind of like moved to Philly and started just like grinding, doing whatever, like odd jobs. And, but I had a buddy of mine at the time who said that I would be a good film producer. And at the time, having done music, one thing I knew about myself was, and another reason I wanted to stop doing it was, I was really ambitious, definitely even when I was doing music, but I kind of knew, like I'm a good singer. I think if I played music, somebody might think I'm like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. But I always knew that like I was never going to be John Legend. Like it wasn't my ceiling to be like the best ever. And I think there's actually something really healthy about admitting what your ceilings are. Like sometimes you have a ceiling that's pretty legitimate. And I think that that's a healthy thing to be self-aware about. But I was always compensating by being really good at like leading and creating, like what I would call creative leadership. I was always compensating by being good at creative leadership because I had to do that because I wasn't that great of a talented singer, but I was pretty good at like creative leadership amongst like the bands I was in. So I learned about a film producer, which basically is just a creative leader for a film, which is one of the most collaborative art forms. Actually, it is the most collaborative art form that really exists. Like a painter can paint alone. A musician, hypothetically speaking, can just sit and do music alone. At scale, there's more parts involved in like a professional musician, but still it's relatively a simple concept. Even though there's more people, filmmaking is definitionally complex, and you can't really make a film by yourself. It requires, by definition, someone behind the camera and someone in front of the camera, and then at scale, hundreds of people. So it seemed like I thought to myself, I do think I could have a no ceiling at this. I don't know if that's true about myself, but if there's anything what's my highest ceiling, I think it could be in film. So I moved to Philly. I started a film company with that friend, and it failed miserably. we grinded for like 3 years and had even a cool potential documentary that was going to happen, and made some corporate clients, and we had a bad falling out. Like it really ended not well. There was almost a legal thing that happened. So my first real attempt to like be an entrepreneur and a filmmaker and a producer and all that stuff ended badly. But it was out of that then I met Chris Newhard, who I'd met living in Philly at the time. Chris Newhard is a great DP in Philadelphia. DP meaning director of photography, for someone who doesn't know what that is. The kind of the main cinematographer for a project. So that's what a DP is. It's like the main person who's in charge of the image. So actually the director of a film isn't actually the main person in charge of the image. They're in charge of the full creative vision of the piece. Someone called a DP is in charge of literally the shot that you're seeing. So the movie 1917, the amazing war from 1917, was directed by, I forget who the director was, but a guy named Roger Deakins, who's one of the greatest DPs of all time. He's the one who executed how to actually get a single shot to happen the entire way. Like he's the one who framed and made that. He's the DP. I digress. Chris Newhart's a really good DP in Philadelphia. We've become good buddies. And I just kind of had a similar relationship with him as I did the first filmmaker I was working with. He was like, hey, I'm trying to build my thing. I could use help on the business side of what I'm doing, but I'm a really good creative. Chris, I will give a big, important compliment to. Chris is not just a good creative. Chris is a very, very smart business person as well. And so basically I decided to just try again. Hey, what do I have to lose? I learned a lot the first time I did this. I'm already kind of like committed to trying to do this with my life. I love doing this, even though I had failed. Let's try again. And Chris and I basically just are yin and yang like crazy. And we just started growing very quickly. So I have been working with Chris officially for 2 full years. And we like the first year we worked together, I think we increased our total revenue of the company by like 6x. And then this last year through 2020, and actually I would be happy to talk about this too, we have grown our revenue 2x to actually having a 7-figure business in 2020.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Awesome.
I don't mean that to boast. I just mean that to say that if you
Yeah.
are creative and agile and willing to adapt, you can do really remarkable things. And I mean, so we were able to do that. We put out a Netflix film. We put out some other content. So Chris and I just, I think, have a really nice yin and yang and really work well together. And and so that's kind of, I guess, my journey about where I'm now. I'm a film producer. I'm the co-owner of Booklight. And that's what I do.
Okay, so first thing, Sam Mendes was the director of 1917.
Yes, Sam Mendes. That's right.
Yeah, I had to look that up because I had no idea. So as a producer, what do you do? I mean, I know you kind of explained it, but like, what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I think there's this lore of what a film producer is. Like many people think about like a producer. It's actually probably less sexy of a role as people like might naturally think it is. I think that a film producer ultimately is some combination of a project manager and like a CFO. So you're kind of like a COO and a CFO of a film project. So you're really leading teams and managing projects. It's a lot of project management. In fact, almost anybody who's a high-level project manager, I could probably, in fact, we're even looking for, as we're growing, I don't actually often look for film producers as I'm thinking about who I'd hire under me. I actually am more interested in either finding salespeople or high-level project managers of other businesses, of other industries, because I can teach you how to do it in film. You just need to be a really good project manager or a really good financial or salesperson. And then you're just taking those skill sets and applying them to commercial and corporate filmmaking and or original content film production. But at the end of the day, I think that's what a film producer is. So I'm dealing with all of the business dynamics so that Chris can deal with executing the creative vision.
Very cool.
Or the director. Yeah.
Very cool. And would you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this film that just got released, this documentary, is this kind of the biggest project you've been on so far? Is it the one thing that you spent the most amount of time on? Is it one thing you're most, maybe not most proud of, but the most significant, maybe most well-known project you put out so far?
Yeah, no question. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So this is, I was actually saying this offline to Olson before we started, but yeah, when I first started, it was about 5 years ago now. So as much as that seems like a long time, from going to never having known anything about film to 5 years later having a Netflix documentary come out, that's actually I'm really happy. That feels like a pretty quick crossover.
Short runway. Yeah.
But when I started about 5 years ago, my first main 2 goals were simple. They were one was make something that someone actually saw. Because I think when you're starting out, you're like, if I could just make something that someone actually saw, that would be like such a cool thing to have happen. Then I also always wanted to be an owner of my own business. And on January 1st, New Year's Day, both things happened on the same day.
Literally the
My Netflix
day.
film dropped
Perfect.
New Year's Day, and my ownership of Book got kicked in on the same day, which was like such a cool serendipitous moment. So that
And
was
it's
really
like,
awesome.
and it just makes perfect sense that both those incredible things would happen the day after the worst year of all time ends. The day after 2020
Yeah,
ends, turn the page,
yeah,
good stuff's happening. Jake's just crushing life.
bro,
Owning a
I'm here.
company.
Anyone listen to this? I'm putting good energy out
Yeah,
into the
it's
universe,
good
bro.
vibes in the
Just
2021.
yeah, dude.
Love that. Love that. So maybe that's kind of a good segue into talking about the film and the doc. So maybe give us a little bit of an introduction, kind of how you get to meet the guys who are kind of starring in the film, kind of what the introduction was there, how the idea of doing a film came to fruition, and how Spotlight kind of got the nod as to be the producers of the film.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the minimalism movement, which really started maybe about full force, some pocket of a decade to five or so years ago, it's really been picking up steam over the past decade. So the minimalism movement, which really comes down to I think two major figureheads, which one are the minimalists, who this film was about, Joshua Fields Milburn and Ryan Nicodemus, and then also I think it deserves to give credit to Marie Kondo and her all of her work. I think she's a really really big part of the minimalism movement as well. Um, and so basically, the minimalists they really are two guys who started a podcast, man. That's genuinely their story. They started a blog, they started a podcast. They kind of and the film Less Is Now on Netflix, which you can go watch. I think that this film really it's almost like a biopic on their lives. Almost, it's almost like a biographical documentary on their lives and kind of how they left their corporate jobs to kind of pursue their passions and become minimalists. And although I would really strongly say that I actually think there's a lot of value in having a corporate job. Like, I don't think that anyone, like, you just should quit your job to, like, I don't know if that's necessarily the message of the film, although I think maybe it might seem like that a little bit. I think more it's about slowing down and just going, hey, I think minimalism, from my perspective, you can watch the film and take your own pick, and hey, you can listen to their podcast and listen to what they have to say about it. But as far as I'm concerned, I think the way I perceive minimalism is really slowing down and starting to become consciously aware of what you value, how you make your decisions, and then choosing to make intentional value add decisions throughout your life. So if you really love fashion, that's awesome. You could go buy clothes. It wouldn't make a difference. But are you buying something because you love it and it's something that adds value to your life? Or are you purchasing something because you're unconsciously a part of the consumeristic grind at basically succumbing to advertising? And I think that it kind of, that could be the case for anything. So for example, we all need to buy food, right? Like, you need, and TK Coleman makes this comment in the film, like, I want my grocery store to sell me food. I want to be sold food. But are you over consuming food all the time? Are you being conscious about how your food intake affects the planet? Are you living your life making conscious decisions, or are you being blown by the wind of consumerism? I think that's probably how I would define minimalism and encourage someone to think about their life.
Yeah, I think that it's such a at the basis of it. I think it sounds very easy to understand. It sounds so basic, and something that I found myself. And I mentioned this to Jake prior to pressing the big red record button, but I found myself having to, as I was taking notes to the film, having to stop and write stuff down and kind of think about things. So it's not just okay, only buy things. And I think you used the correct terms, being by being intentional and thinking through the purchases, not just buying it because this big machine of Google and advertisements and Facebook and Amazon and yada 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 down the line tells me, oh, I need this because Joe down the street has it, and I need to have it too. But being intentional about your purchases and kind of asking the question, is this adding value to my life? And I think that the way that we operate, we're so go go go, buy, just by our nature, especially I think as Americans. But we don't think about that. At least I think most people don't. So it really got me to think and just kind of slow down. I think that's a great point that you had brought up, Jake, was just kind of slowing down, really thinking to the way you're living and kind of why you're buying things and being intentional about those things that you are procuring and storing away. And something I flew my mind, I had to like pause it and write it down. I actually have it in my notes wow in capital letters with an exclamation point. It was saying it was the average American household has over 300,000 items in it, which blew my mind.
Insane.
An insane amount of things.
Blew my
Nobody
mind.
needs 300,000 things of anything. Of
No,
anything.
nothing.
And
But you
just the fact
buy
that that's
things and then you go, oh, I'll need this one day, and you put
right.
it in your basement, and you put
Right.
it in your attic, you put it in your crawl space, and you don't really need it.
Right.
And I think that's Anyway, Michael, what were you gonna say?
No,
I was gonna. Oh,
go ahead, Michael. No, go ahead.
We're both Michael, so it's different. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Olson.
I
You're
say
fine.
it's
Go ahead.
Sorry, bro.
No, go ahead, Olson. You're fine.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that, and everyone has had that moment, whether you're home as a kid, helping your mom clear out the clutter drawer, or to go into the attic and be like, okay, when do you have a garage sale? Because you just need to purge that stuff, and you can see, like, as a kid, you can see your parents getting stressed out about all the stuff they have, and they gotta get rid of it. And what do we need? Let's go, and we do a purge of the closet and just get rid of stuff, because it just gets so overwhelming. And I think taking that step and kind of really examining what in your life that you don't need and get rid of that. I think it makes so much sense to me. And it really, like I said to you, Jake, it was not just a good film because my buddy did it. It was just a genuine, like, it thought provoking and, something that I'm going to try to apply to my life to kind of like, clear things out and kind of do it as a personal challenge to get rid of some stuff and kind of see how that impacts my happiness. If it does, awesome. If it doesn't, hey, it's a good opportunity to try something new. So.
Dude, that's awesome, man. I mean, I didn't even think, it's cool to have a film come out, but I think with any, I kind of view myself as an art business person more than an artist. I say that also because I respect artists so much and work with them. So I think there's an important distinction there. But as much as my artist bone can beat, that's really cool to hear. I mean, I think is why any of us make anything, even to have a minimalist perspective about why even make something, is there has to be a hope and a positive intention between why you would even make this film in the first place. And to hear that even like a friend was like emotionally positively impacted by something that I made is like such a cool thing to hear. So that's awesome to hear that, man. That's sweet.
Absolutely. Anyways, Michael, I know you were going to say something too, but I kind of cut you off.
No, you're
go
fine.
for it.
I think one thing that you said was, first of all, I'm going to circle back. Oh, I hate being the circle back guy. I always say, let's circle back like at work.
Well, I talk too much. That's the problem.
No, you're fine. But the 300,000 items things blows my mind. And I honestly think that now that Hillary and I have a house, and we've been here for 2.5 years, having a basement with extra storage has been the bane of our existence. Because if we buy something new, we get new chairs, or we get, some new, art to put on the wall. It's like, oh, we don't need to get rid of this. Put it in the basement. I have a friend of a friend who my buddy was telling me that he was getting rid of shelves in his house so that he would stop keeping so much shit.
Yeah.
So he was going through, his kids were out of school. He was going through getting rid of their stuff. And when it was done, there was like back storage. He was just yanking them out. He's like, I have too much shit.
Yeah. I know I have
incredible.
boxes in my apartment. I moved relatively recently, at least this summer, that I know I have a box sitting in my closet right now that has been opened maybe twice, and it's moved my last 3 apartments. It's just been picked up and moved. And I don't even know what's all in there. And it just moves because that's just because maybe I'll need that one day. And just like you said, Jake, it just moves with you. And I just need to just get rid of it.
I have winter clothes that I packed before we moved out of our apartment that are still in the boxes that I packed them in, just like you. Why do I need those? Why do I need that?
Well, and one thing really interesting thing too, and this happens to everybody, is one thing that's so interesting. And this is really interesting that you're bringing about, like moving into a home and just having more space, so you fill the space with more stuff.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is this also is how it works with actually as we make more money in our lives. So the statistics show very clearly that people start to make more and more money, and then all of a sudden they're like, why am I still stressed? I thought if I started to make more money, I would be less stressed. But what the problem is, as you make more money, your lifestyle becomes more expensive.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of that thing where it's almost like it doesn't even matter how much money you make, little or a ton. You have to make sure you are in control of what you're purchasing and what you're doing, because you could be making a significant 6-figure salary and you could be living in a tiny home RV trailer like I did for a little bit. Like you don't need to have some big fancy space just because your social circle says that you should do that. Yeah. And I think that's what's cool about minimalism is it's just slowing down and just going, what do me, my partner, who I'm responsible for and responsible with, what do we need? And one important distinction, the minimalists talk a lot about this on their podcast, but there's a difference between minimalism and essentialism. That's important too. So there's this idea of essentialism, which you almost is like, caveman living, right? What is the bare need to survive? But I think it's important to remember that that's not what minimalism is about. Minimalism is not essentialism. Essentialism is a good exercise to help kind of almost like fast almost your intake. So I think essentialism is a good exercise. And I'm not saying it's a bad lifestyle. Essentialism can be a great lifestyle, but I think it's important to realize that essentialism can help you purge and help you get rid of your kind of the American consumeristic mindset. But minimalism is not about having only what you need. Minimalism, you can have things that you love. It's okay to have things in your life that you love. You guys have really nice podcast microphones. Do you need that? I guess no, but it adds value to your life. So that's amazing. It allows you to do something, connect, create, be creative. So do you need a podcast microphone? I don't know, maybe not, but it's adding value to your life. So it's kind of just that more the question of, it's not just getting rid of everything so I only have what I bare need. It's saying, for me and my life and what I care about, like it's like I love podcasting and I love sports and spending time with my friends. Amazing. Okay. That's like 3 things. Like there's a ton of shit you have that isn't in those categories that you're still buying because you just are unaware that you're doing it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's the important differentiation between essentialism and minimalism. They're not quite the same thing.
Yeah, totally. And I think you made a good point about I want to go back a little bit. We made a point about the house. So you filled it with space. Mm-hmm. And the first bullet point that I have in my notes, and I should stop referring to my notes, but the only thing I have highlighted in this entire page, and it was a quote that Josh had in the film, which I found resonating. He was saying, he was 28, very successful, bunch of success, nice clothes, nice house, yada yada yada. And he gets to the point of saying, like, he wasn't happy. And he was kind of going into the American dream and kind of how that kind of propelled him to the point where he was at. And he said, he was living the American dream, but he wasn't living his dream, which I think is so important because so many of us get caught up because we're taught from a young age, this is what you're supposed to do. And this is the path you follow. And you go to this age and you get married and you have kids and you have a house and whatever. That's the American dream, right? But if it's not making you happy, like take a look at your life, kind of where, you can make improvements. And for him, it is obviously it resulted in this minimalist movement, which for me, I think that's so important for us to understand, especially as like, guys who are 28 years old, Jake, you have your company, Michael, you're starting a family, etc. Like we have this idea that's been ingrained in us for so long. This is the American dream, what you're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, it's your life. You have to live your dream and do your thing. So I think that was one of the things I took away. It's so simple. It was literally 10 words, but I thought it was super impactful, super powerful.
Well, here, I have one extra thing I'd love to add to that too. So I actually, maybe it was good I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. So again, as I mentioned, I grew up in a really religious environment. That's how I grew up. And so one thing that actually gave me is I have a very real understanding of the concept of living under dogma. So living in a culture that says there's certain things you should do, right? So religion does this. Now, for anyone who listens to religion, I'm not harping all religion is a bad thing. But one thing that's, I think, is in my adult life, I think I've come to realize is there's a difference between rules set by you and dogma set by somebody else. So, for example, we made it's like, hey, a lot of women in conservative religious Christian circles often feel pressure to do certain kinds of things because there's a subculture that says that they should. That's dogma, right? So I bring it up only to say, Olson, you're like, there's this concept as general Americans that there are certain things you should do because you're an American. And I want to argue that's just another example of dogma. Certainly. It's just some kind of thing that somebody that wasn't you said you should do with your life. But why? Like, what if you don't love that? What if that's not in line with your personal values? Now, I think rules are important, but rules set by who? Rules set by you and your partner and your unit. These are the rules that we're going to connect with, that we believe are healthy for us and our living. And guess what? Those rules are malleable. If we realize that there's a better way to do something, we can adjust and we can change. But the way we live our life is defined by us or me, not by somebody else who I don't even know. And so I think with the American Dream, that's a great example. Lots of people think they have to do X. What do you mean you have to do X? Who said that to you? That's just a dogma, I think, that exists within American culture. So I think that's an important idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Michael, do you have anything to add to that or any thoughts on that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would completely agree. I think that one of the biggest takeaways from me, at least personally, from this film was, one, we're purging our house, we're getting rid of a bunch of shit that we don't need to, but then two, take what makes you happy and strive towards doing that. If
Heck yeah.
for me, for making me happy is to work on projects at the house, and I have to buy tools in order to do those projects. Great, that's fantastic. It's improving our home, it's improving our quality of life, etc. But for me, buying little trinkets and getting little I don't know, putting a bunch of, novelty sporting items around my basement isn't important to me. Not that that's good or bad. It's just not something that I have. I have two right there. That's about it. So
Yep, no question.
Amazing.
I looked at that, and that's why I thought of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Real,
kind of maybe
real
circling
thinker
back
here.
kind of to maybe the start of the project, maybe speak to kind of
Mhm.
how you got to know Josh and Ryan, kind of how this kind of came into fruition, more so than just the idea of minimalism, but maybe speak to kind of how this project came to be and how you know those guys. And sounds like you're very close to them.
Yeah. So, uh, Booklight, which is our company, Booklight. We are a production company, which anyone who listens to this, film, there's millions, maybe not millions, but there's thousands of production companies out in the world, all with often very similar goals, which is to make really nice, high level, productions. So we've always had a goal to move into what I would call original content. So the way I'll use this terminology is there's corporate and commercial content, project you're doing for brands or for companies, and then there's original content, which is more creative content you're doing for a studio or a distributor. um, and so we've always wanted to get into doing original content, and we know Matt Diavello, the director of this film, really well. Matt's a good friend of mine, a longtime friend of Chris, my business partner. And so when they greenlit Less Is Now, we weren't on the project when they first greenlit the film,
Okay.
but they had greenlit it, and very quickly we're like, oh damn,
We want
we
this.
can't make this movie. So they called us and were like, hey, can you help? And we were like, hell yeah. And so we came on board at that point. And yeah, the movie actually would have been released earlier in 2020. We were almost done with it. We need to get a few other things done. Then COVID happened. And so we had to be kind of smart and nimble and find a few ways to add some extra dynamics to the film that Netflix really wanted. And so we kind of took our time and finished the film properly. I think from Matt and the Minimalists starting even the original idea of the film, I think it was a 4-year process for them between like having the idea, connecting about it, having made a couple of versions of it that weren't very good, trying to sell it and not selling, until finally they got to some version of it that Netflix did buy. And then, we came on, and then it was probably a full 1.5 to 2 years from start to finish to us being on the film. I think it's I don't know if that's a misconception or not, but films, documentaries specifically, but films just can take a long time to make. They're just very marathon style projects. I mean, they just take a long time to make. When you put a lot of money into something, it needs to be good. There are lots of films that can take shorter periods of time just because, hey, you bought it and hey, we want it out by this time. So, there's lots of variance there. There are some films that move very quickly as well, like a season of the show. You greenlight a new season of the show. It's written, it's shot, it's edited, it's put out, it's on a time schedule. That certainly happens too. But I think with documentaries specifically, you don't really have a documentary until you documented something. So,
Right.
so it kind of is done when it's interesting, when you've filmed enough for it to be really interesting. And I think that's unique about the documentary genre, is it's not just like a set screenplay. It's some kind of idea you're trying to get across, or some story you're documenting, and it's not done until it's done. You know what I mean? So I think that's one unique thing about the documentary genre.
And absolutely. It's one of my favorite genres for that exact reason. I guess maybe on a personal note, Jake, and Michael, if you have something else to add to me before I start getting up on tangents, just stop me. But outside of the, making the film and putting it out and all this, but what's maybe one or two things that you personally, maybe you and Kate, kind of took away from the experience, maybe something you're going to apply to your life directly? And obviously, you guys are living in the RV, and you're kind of, I'm not sure if you consider it similar in a way, but maybe speak to something personally that you took away from the experience. Maybe outside the actual professional world of getting to learn how to do the whole producer thing, but something you can apply directly to your life on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, well, so for those who don't know, too, actually completely unrelated to making this movie at all. It was completely parallelly unrelated. My wife, who's a very talented designer and now getting her master's in architecture at SciArc, an unbelievably high-end school in Los Angeles. My wife is very impressive and very smart. uh,
She's way better than you are.
she's way
Just
smarter than
kidding.
me. That's for sure.
Just kidding.
I'm not kidding. But we bought like a vintage Argosy Airstream and we completely rebuilt it out and we lived in it full time for a year, which sounds like such a minimalism cellular stuff thing to do. I mean it. It was, we weren't even working on the film when we first started doing that. So it was like a totally cool, independent, almost like merging of I don't know, whatever. But I think I say that to say that I think that in making this film, I actually ended up moving out of the Airstream throughout making this film, which is almost funny, moving into Los Angeles, back into an apartment. So I actually walked away from my pure minimalist Airstream living for even through making the film. But I think that I bring that up to say that the thing that, because I think some people hear about minimalism or they hear about that and they think, well, I could never do that. Like I can't sell all my stuff and go live in an Airstream. I can't live some tiny home extreme life. And I think that's where like I actually feel sometimes more of a minimalist today than I do when I lived in the Airstream. Although the Airstream was a really cool, unique experience, and living in a home that was completely curated for you is a very unique thing. I could talk about it another time. But my passion for architecture too, and the value of architecture. But I think what about minimalism is that even as like my career has gotten bigger and like I travel internationally, like even in 2020, the year where everything shut down, I'm like to premier gold status with United. Like I'm traveling, I am really a busy person doing it safely and all those things, but I'm doing that a lot. So even as like my life gets more intense and busy and complicated, the concept of minimalism being more important even now than it was before, which is that, am I being blown about by the wind of my career or about like what I do? Or do I still make conscious decisions about what are ways that I can like not be bougie or extra about this and I don't become some producer asshole? Like what are ways that I stay minimal and actually practice humility? I have this one idea that which is the idea of practicing being inconvenienced. So the idea that sometimes you might just make sense to try and get to the shortest line or cut someone at the grocery store. But it's like, what if I intentionally chose the longest line?
Mm-hmm.
Just to like sit here and be like, I shit too. And like, I might have a Netflix movie, but like, I'm going to go to the DMV and wait 5 hours in line with everybody else. And like, that's just the deal. And so I think ideas of like practicing inconvenience and humility while also making sure that I'm in control of my choices and I'm not doing something because, oh, I'm an LA film producer, I should do X. It's like, well, no, I bought this car. I don't need a nicer car. This car will work for a long time. I don't need to impress anybody. But if I just did the things that Kate and I view as the right decisions for us. And so I think the intentionality, I mean, to answer your question simply, it's just that idea we've already talked about, which that's what I've learned and applied to my life, is just being intentional and choiceful about the things that you do.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you said, intentionally making yourself inconvenienced or actively inconveniencing yourself, is something that we've talked about before on a similar note, is becoming comfortable being uncomfortable. So putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. That's something that was huge for us when we were training for our 100. We had to, I mean, it's an apples to oranges comparison, but it's similar. You know, what do you want to do, you know, when you're 35, 40, 50 miles into a 100-mile race? Well, you're going to have to be used to walking on sore legs. You're going to have to be used to being pushed forward when you're tired or hungry or, you know, XYZ. So the more often you can put yourself in situations where you're out of your zone, the more comfortable you'll be with when you are presented with those situations where you're uncomfortable, and you'll be able to handle it a little bit better.
To apply that to filmmaking, this is a really interesting misnomer as well. Like, I think that there's this misconception, one misconception about filmmaking that everyone outside the film industry thinks that is not true about those inside the film industry. Making films is a miserable process. It is so hard and so frustrating and so anxiety driving. Like, it is a really difficult thing. I think some people think, man, to be Christopher Nolan, man, how easy would it be? No, Christopher Nolan has to freaking make a movie like the rest of us. Now, he has huge budgets and stuff, but with bigger budgets comes way bigger stressors and way bigger expectation and way bigger profit margins needed by the studios. Like, making a film is kind of a miserable process, and you love it. But I think there's this. I was listening to Tim Ferriss podcast, and they were talking about, this is a well-recorded fact, but the number one predictor of success, bar none, is drive. Why is that? Because it doesn't matter how successful or how up the ladder you come. You have to be able to endure sustained levels of pain to become successful, period. It does not, you become better. Well, you think the best marathon runners aren't miserable? Are you kidding me? It's just still running the freaking marathon. It doesn't matter how fast, like it just gets harder. And so I think that's one thing is, I think I used to have a misnomer of like, one day I'll just be like coasting. I'll just like have my stuff and I'll just be coasting. I'll just be making movies and like, that'll be my life. And it's like, all right, you become an owner of a company. And now I have people who will lose their job if I don't bring sales into our company.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I have people who will lose their jobs and will have to move out of their apartments if I'm not performing. That is not less stressful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think
yeah.
there's that idea that you have to stay with good habits. You have to continue to be able to be healthy and perform while under intense pressure. And that's a really important thing, no matter where you are on the spectrum.
Yeah, no question. I think that I mentioned it a couple of times, but going through that pain and that, that suffering, whether it's staying up, working 100-hour weeks while you're making the film, or however many hours you do work when you're doing that, or Michael, when you're on mile 70 and you're going through that, that's when you get better, right? When you work through that and you go through that and you reach the finish line and you learn, you become a better film producer, become a better marathon runner, or whatever it is. You get better, through those trials.
And you have to love it. You have to
pain.
learn to love that feeling.
Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No reason to be complaining about it while when in the middle of it. The best you can do is embrace it. You're in the situation, like you chose to be doing this, like you love film, like you're doing that, you're loving it. Michael, we love doing these stupid races, whether it's doing a 100-mile race or an Ironman triathlon. Like we love that process. It sucks. There's times like, why am I doing this? But at the end of the day, you're gonna sign up for another race as soon as you finish, and Jake's gonna make another film as soon as he puts out this one on Netflix. Like that's just what you do because you love it. You get better at it. The more you do it, it's going to suck.
Can I make one other comment on that?
Absolutely.
I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I think it's a really important note too. So the topic of becoming successful in like personal development and business books is really popular. It has been for a long time, but it obviously is. One, I think important, a mistake I think a lot of people make is assuming that the path to becoming successful is the same as the path to becoming healthy. They're not the same journey. In fact, they're very different journeys. So you could become unbelievably successful and be a serious asshole who's unbelievably unhealthy. We see this all the time. Why do you think celebrities are killing themselves? I mean that not even as a joke. Like becoming successful and becoming healthy are not the same journey. And so I think that's another important thing too, is like I'm trying to become successful. I'm also trying to not become Harvey Weinstein. And I really mean that. Like I could become successful. Harvey Weinstein was unbelievably successful. I think he still is rich and killing it. So becoming successful and becoming a monster can be the same.
Right.
And so there's that question then of what are you doing in your life to become healthier while you're becoming more successful? And so, and are you pairing those? And I don't even mean healthy as far as only like physical, like are you mental health and spiritual health and relational health? And like, are you actively pursuing that? Because I could just be divorced and flying around and just, giving a crap what Kate thinks about my schedule. That's not the case. We have rules in my marriage about how often I can travel. And sometimes that gets complicated. So we make compromises and but sometimes I can't go on the trip because I have a wife and I could just get divorced and live my life. But I view my marriage as an integral part of my life. And so how am I becoming healthy and successful at the same time, and making sure I'm being aware that I have to independently pursue both of those. They're not the same journey.
Very wise words, Jacob Matthew. Very wise words. No,
So
that was good. That was very insightful.
Yeah. So how did you come to that conclusion? Obviously, you know that you want to have some sustained success in your life, and success to you may be different than success to me, but how did you come to that conclusion that being successful and being healthy aren't necessarily going to be, go hand in hand?
I have a great analogy.
Clearly you put thought into this.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, I'm just thinking about this shit all the time. Number one, like I'm just always in the deeps of my mind thinking about this shit. But I'll give you a good example that your listeners will appreciate. I have a really good buddy. Actually, his name's Andy Thrift. He's an old friend of mine, and he's like so intense. He's hilarious, but he's a good guy. He once, just because he's so like this, was like, I'm going to run a marathon. Because a buddy of his said one was coming up in a week. He'd never trained, and he just did it. And he did. He, with no training, showed up and finished a marathon. And he was broken for a month.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Did it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you can accomplish lots of stuff. You could go burn through every person in your life and use everybody as an object and go accomplish everything you want to. You could do that if you want to. Of course you could. But is that the life that you want to live? And I think that's that thing of like with minimalism, it was slowing down and going, what do I value? What is it that I care about? Do I care about becoming unbelievably wealthy and successful and everyone knowing who I am and just pursuing my vanity? That's not, I mean, you could go do that. That's fine. For me, that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not even judging someone who just like wants to go become successful. That's fine. If you really want to do that. But I think for me, I think I feel very keenly aware. I think I even how I view money a little bit too. Like I don't mind spending money on Dean's bachelor party because I feel very keenly aware that I'm not taking it with me when I die. You know. Also, this might be a controversial opinion as well. I'm not overly worried about leaving my kids lots of money. I'm like, if I ever do have kids, I'm overly aware of really helping to raise some good ass kids. But I'm not really waiting for my parents to die to take all their money. Like I'm not really sitting around waiting for that. So it's one of those things where it's like, I care about the time that I have on this planet, and I would rather lose some money and spend a weekend with you guys or have a great marriage than than have a mill in the bank account. Like I could have a mill in the bank account so I can impress, I don't know, who am I going to walk around telling that I have a mill in the bank account?
Right.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. And like, I'm not saying to be financially irresponsible. I think financial responsibility is a really, really important part of life. But I think it's, to ask the question of why I think that I just have a really good why about my life. And my why is, especially in the light of today's political climate, I grew up a millennial in the era of Harvey Weinstein. And I think that white men have done a really bad job. They've done a good job too, but have done a bad job for a long time. And I want to reframe what it means to be me. I want young white boys to have a different view of what it means to become successful. That does not mean trampling over women. That does not mean being an asshole. That does not mean pushing people around. I want to try and become someone who can get to that level of really having done something impressive with my life while having done it in a way that resets the bar as to what it should be like to be me. That's my why about my entire life. And so I feel really passionate about that. So for me, just becoming the most successful film producer of all time is not my singular goal. I'd rather slowly over a long period of time correctly walk my way to that path and have built really healthy foundations and have raised a very diverse group of film producers up in my wake, and have kind of reshaped what it means to be me.
Yeah.
I think that's my why.
Sounds like you wanted to enjoy the process up to getting to success versus just getting to success.
Yeah, man, just do it the right way. And also, dude, if I don't also get to what? Like, I already have a Netflix phone.
Yeah.
Like, I could call it now and be like, I did it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I'm never
like,
gonna have a Netflix phone.
Yeah, and I don't mean like I'm so great. I'm just saying it's like also
No,
at one point it's like, but it's like you put these bars. I felt like if I crossed that mountain, I'd like be a bit set.
Yeah.
And I made one film, and the second it was out, I mean, this is like stories of time. I'm like, if I don't utilize this momentum to sell 3 more films, I'm gonna have failed.
Sure.
Like that's what's in my brain.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like you just have to be like, am I taking time to like sit next to Kate while she plays freaking Laura Croft and I'm reading a book and she's like deep into playing video games? I'm just going to look like, dude, I've got what I need here, man. Like I've got what I need. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I wanted to make a point, kind of something that Josh said in the film that was very simple, but again, I thought it was very poetic, and it was, memories are not in our things, they're in us. And I think that was after he had gone down to, I think it was Florida after his mom had passed, and he was packing up stuff. He was getting ready to bring a whole bunch of stuff back to wherever he was living at the time. I forget. Maybe it was Ohio or something. Back with him, he decided, you know what, I can bring back a couple things. I'm going to get a whole lot more value out of these few things than I am going to get out of, having her 300,000 things she had packed in her house, and having that kind of be washed or being dampered down with the amount of things versus a few things that actually add value to her life. So his life. So I thought the fact that it was a very simple statement, but memories are in our things, excuse me, memories are not in our things, they're in us, was very poetic. And I had that written down. It was a very nice quote from Josh.
Yeah. I would agree. I also think too, just on a much more like shallow level, isn't it nice when your house or your workplace or wherever is just a little bit neater, a
Bro,
little less
yeah,
cluttered?
No
dude.
question.
And if you don't collect a bunch of stuff, then it's not going to be quite as cluttered. And I really think, I'm glad you brought that up, because like I said, so Hillary and I, we'll get to the challenge, but we're taking that challenge at the end of the film. And I'm going through old boxes of stuff and seeing hats and clothes and shirts and stuff. And every time I see them, I'm reminded of, oh, this is a good time. Like, this was a good memory, playing at this ultimate tournament, 8 years ago. But do I need this hat? Or can I keep one disc that reminds me of my entire ultimate journey that I took, for those 5 or 6 years of my life?
Right.
That's probably sufficient. That's probably good enough. And then guess what? I just got rid of 6 hats and 8 jerseys that I'll never wear again.
Right.
Slow steps, slow progress. So
Yeah,
And one thing the Minimalists talk about on their podcast, it's a good cheat code of that too, because we do live in 2021, right?
Yeah.
Is also you can take a photo of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you can take a photo of it and then get rid of it. And like this happened to me recently. I have an iPad and I didn't know that it did this, but my iPad has this thing where when I open up, it takes an old photo and like puts it almost like it's like my like a photo thing. Like the top left of my iPad on the home screen just has a new photo of like years ago. And I'm like, oh, it's my honeymoon. And it's like photos really do have a lot of power. They really can emotionally bring you to something. And it's like, I mean, hey, if you really want to hold onto a physical object because it really means that much to you, okay, like that's not a problem. You can do that. But if you find yourself doing that with every object in your house, it's like, okay, you probably don't need all these things, but you can take photos of them and keep those memories, but you don't need this thing anymore.
That's actually a great point. It's something I never would have thought about. But that, like you were saying, Michael, obviously you have those memories. Like that hat that you have in there is not what I mean. It's triggering the memory because you see that and you think back to 2008 in your high school ultimate tournament with Jake and our other friends. But
yeah,
just as well, take a picture of it. You can see that picture of that hat on your phone and have the same exact trigger of the memory, and not have to have that clutter in your house. So that's a great point, Jake. I'm gonna apply that. That's a great point.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Cool.
So,
yeah,
I guess we can roll into it too. So also, you obviously watched the documentary too.
Yep.
Are you taking a step towards clearing clutter? I know you just moved too within the last 6
no,
months.
absolutely. I know we were kind of mentioning it briefly earlier, but yeah, like I was saying, I have so many. I was thinking of this weekend. I was looking for a sweater that I wear on a routine basis. I actually wore it last night. So I'm like, I know where this one is because I wear it all the time. And just when I was kind of going through the closet, and like everyone else, kind of just like you have so many shirts, and you kind of slide them across the hanger. I was like, I haven't worn that shirt in 3 years. It's moved maybe 2 apartments with me. I have boxes that I was saying earlier that have moved 3 times with me. I haven't even opened. Like, there's so many things I just need to start getting rid of. So absolutely, that's going to be something that I'm going to try to do. And I think in the film they said like maybe a couple things per day, maybe 3 things per day. So yeah, absolutely, that's something I'm gonna look to apply kind of moving forward and see kind of where it takes me.
Yeah, dude. One other thing I would encourage you to. So this is more popularized an idea actually by Steve Jobs, but and then this is a big Tim Ferriss talks about this a lot too. But it's decision fatigue. So one thing as well is this idea is like if you have less things, you have less decisions to make.
Right.
And so that's one thing about me is like I'm this with my clothes. So because I'm going to force be minimalist because I'm a travel filmmaker. So I can live. This is not a joke. I have a carry-on size suitcase, duffel bag. I have gone to Australia. I've traveled a lot, and I can only ever take this thing because I only need what I can fit into this duffel bag. And so like I fly so much. I like in business and first actually fairly often. I could bring 3 bags with me. I bring 1 carry-on every time. I don't bring anything else with me, dude. And what's interesting is like when I wake up in the morning and put something on, I've spent no energy. Somebody made a critique of the film or this concept too that that men have an advantage for this because there's just way more complexity to female fashion, or maybe even gender neutral fashion. If a binary person is listening to your podcast, if you're binary or female, if you identify that way, that like sometimes there's more complication to fashion. And I think that's where I would say too, if you love fashion, who cares? Great, right. Love your fashion. That's fine. There's other things in your life that you could scale down with too. But for me, at least, a huge advantage of my life is like I don't spend any energy in the morning making decisions about my wardrobe. I get to work and I'm just grinding, and I don't have any decision fatigue from my wardrobe choices.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if they mentioned it in the film, but I think it's what like an average adult like makes 35,000 decisions a day. Like you don't think
Yeah,
about it.
we
I
didn't
mean,
get into that,
right?
but yeah,
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, yeah, it's some
Yeah.
unfathomable number. So if you can reduce that and take away from that number slightly, if you cut it by a third or a half, I mean, like you said, that's reducing that decision fatigue by 50%. I mean, that's a huge number.
Because human energy really works like a gas tank. Like that's one thing
Totally.
that's really interesting is human energy is that way. So you have unlimited energy as long as you're getting good sleep every night. And man, the importance of sleep is something else you can talk about. But
Right.
as far as that window of time, you as a human, the species of being a human, you have energy on a day. It is limited for that day. So you don't want to be wasting time doing, and this is even where it's like, I think with the inconveniencing thing too, right? It's like you're at a traffic light, pissed off about the traffic light. You're spending energy right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like even in those moments, like almost minimalism there with like being in control of your, because I think I have a bit of a temper. Like that's one thing with Kate and I, we talk a lot about. It's like I'm not like mean, but I just like can get sassy fast. And I think that I get riled up real quick. And so I think that that's something too, where it's like, I want to work on this next year is being more in control of my emotions. So I'm not spending energy where Kate said something to me and she didn't mean it badly, but I took it weird. Like now I'm like moody or something. And it's like, dude, I could not be doing this. Like this is like a hilarious marriage. I've been married for, dude, I'm in my 7th year of marriage. Can you guys believe that?
Yeah, you're
7.
20
dude.
years old. You got married pretty young, relatively
Yeah,
young.
when I'm 32, I'll have been married for a decade.
Quarter of your life you've been married.
Wild.
Isn't that crazy, bro? I
It
know,
is crazy. Wow.
Anyway, so decision fatigue, I think, pairs with minimalism, honestly, and success and health culture and both of those things. Being in more control and being more intentional with even just the energy.
Whoa. Did you lose Jake?
Nope, he's back now.
I'm here. I'm
There he
back.
is.
Okay,
I'm
there
back.
you go.
Sorry.
You're back.
Nope,
Thank
you're
God.
making a good point there, and you kind of just glitched for a second, but you're back. You're back.
Yeah.
You're saying you're being very intentional about your decisions, which
Yeah, even minimalist in the
Yep.
energy you spend. Like, are you being choiceful and intentional with the energy you spend in your day?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have a few comments on that, and then I have a question that I want to ask you, and then we can kind of move on.
Great.
So one thing that you said that kind of hit home with me when you're sitting in traffic and you're frustrated, you're angry, you're driving home. There's nothing you can do about that traffic. So one thing that you could do is try to only spend energy or only expel energy on things that you can actively control. Traffic,
Yes.
you have no control over that traffic. Now
yes. All yes.
No, obviously that statement can be taken and obviously adjusted because there are some things that are worth your energy. Like yesterday, we're recording this on the 7th. Yesterday, January 6th, was the takeover of the Capitol building. Spent a lot of energy yesterday kind of following that and worrying about that because
Totally.
it's an important thing that's going on. Whatever. Not going to get into that today. But I spent energy on that, and that was energy probably well spent. I did not spend energy today when I spilled ice cubes on the ground. And I mean, I picked them up, but I didn't worry about it. I didn't think about it, even though it's something I could have controlled. That's a really bad example.
Well, can I butt in on that? Because
Yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt you. So there's an amazing book called Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. So it's taking the concept of minimalism, and we even thought about this with working with like Josh, Ryan, and I have talked about this idea too about even other films. But the concept of digital minimalism, which is that, so for example, this is a great example. This overtaking of the Capitol happening. I won't get political about it, but that happens. So you're on your phone. Actually, Ryan Nicodemus, and I talked to him today before I got on with you guys. I was on a call with him about something else, another show that we're developing. But he was like, dude, I like spiraled, and I've been on my phone every 10 minutes for the last 8 hours, and like I can't get off of it. And he was like, I'm lamenting with you, like I need to like have a friend help me make sure I'm not doing this anymore. And I was like, well, let's talk about it. But it's one of those things where with your time and your energy and your attention, who's in control of your attention? Is your Instagram in control of your attention, or are you in control of your attention? Now, for example, Michael, I think you're right. You, as an American, you should understand, have spent some energy to know what's going on in this very historical moment in American history. Whatever side you're on about it, it's a very historical moment. So that's something that should demand your attention. But if you could probably spend 5 to 7 minutes reading a nice scholarly quick article about what just happened, because there's been a few written, New York Times, pick your nice source, and okay, I understand what happened. You spent 7 minutes. You probably, the information gained, how many minutes into learning and watching content does your information increase plateau? And the answer is short.
Pretty quick.
Very quickly.
Quick. But you
don't
spend
learn more.
3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, but you've not learned or gained more. And so at that point, you have to go, hey, I see what's happened. Tomorrow, I'll check back in to see what some developments are. But today in Los Angeles, literally on the other side of the country, I'm not in political power. I want to understand and be aware about what's happening in my world and have my own thoughts about it. But I can't affect any change from my office in Los Angeles. Maybe I could do a repost, or I could, but even then I feel like it almost becomes arbitrary. I mean, maybe you're raising awareness, but the awareness is already there. I mean, you get to that diminishing returns really fast.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's nuts. And then the other thing I wanted to make a point of, I was listening to another podcast. I don't remember the podcast. I don't remember the conversation that they were having entirely, but I do remember this, and there's a reason that it stuck with me. So for the most part, I think that most people have a genuinely positive notion towards me. So I haven't, I'm not very negatively.
That's presumptuous.
I'm not very,
I was going to say, it's
presumptuous. It's very presumptuous. Just a general positiveness. But one person, the person that was on was a well-known person. They weren't like political, but they, have their opinions. And something that he said, actually, I think it was Jeff Garland. Jeff Garland was saying this. He said to Joe Rogan, whatever, that's another conversation.
So you do remember the person, you do remember the podcast.
I do, because now it's coming back to me. But Jeff Garland said that when he has negative critics in comedy or in his shows, he says, thank you. And then he thinks to himself, I have no control over your opinion of me, and I'm not responsible for your opinion over me.
Yeah.
If he's being the best person that he can be and he's being his true self, now if you're being a complete dick to somebody, then you absolutely have that control. But if you are just being yourself and they think negatively of you, okay, that's your opinion. And I think that, again, I haven't really had to run into that over the course of my life, but if and when I get to the point where, I have to make some hard decisions and people think negatively of me, I'm going to try to remember that. I don't have any control over their opinion of me based on the actions that I took, if I'm doing those actions to better myself or my family or whatever.
Yeah, dude.
That's a good point.
I'm an unbelievably big fan of Billie Eilish. I love Billie Eilish.
I love Billie Eilish.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. And she did this thing. It wasn't a song. It was just like an art piece where she basically put out a pseudo music video where it was her giving a spoken word piece that she had written while she was taking off articles of her clothes. And one thing about Billie Eilish is she dresses really in baggy clothes. And so she's like, I mean, I'm not speaking for her. I just, as a consumer and a fan, she's she's a female major figurehead artist who hasn't overly sexualized herself to achieve it for fame. So she was doing this thing where she was starting to take off her clothes. And at the end, it's just her head, like it's going to show her body, and it doesn't. And the last comment is, I am not responsible for your opinion of me. And I was like,
that's powerful. Yeah.
Like her just being like, you can think what you want to about me, but I'm not responsible for your opinion of me. Like, I'm going to be me and do me and be healthy with who I am. And I could be at the height of fame. Billie Eilish, one of the most famous people in the world for a period of time. And like, she has that much self-awareness and moral compass to just be like, I can do whatever I'm going to do and stand for what I'm going to stand for, despite the pressures of the entire internet. I was like, fuck yeah, man, you rock, dude. That was freaking awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially the age of what? She's like 19? That's incredible.
Oh my God, how mature
she just turned 18.
Yeah.
How mature is she? Are you kidding me?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And how healthy is that for any kid who's listening to that? Man,
right.
Awesome.
Absolutely. One of my favorite, I'm not that much of a YouTuber, but one of my favorite videos that I've watched, and I've watched it now, this is my second year, was she is interviewed by the same company. It's like not CNN, but somebody, and they ask her the same questions every year. And every year, then she watches herself from last year, from prior years. And they re-ask her the same questions. And it's just fascinating to see, she went from 15 to 18. It's only, 4-year time period. But the way that she's changed, and if it were me in that situation, I know I would look at myself and I would think, you're such an idiot. You're so stupid. Why are you acting like that? And then the next year I would look at myself and say, why are you being so critical of yourself? You're so stupid. So I would continue to just be criticizing myself.
Well, anyway, one other thing on that too, what you said I think is important. So maybe I'll even bring back to the pocket of what we're talking about, but it is that like, I've been thinking a lot about this idea recently. Last week, I've been thinking about this a lot. The idea of the power of the word iterate. So iterate is a word that in creative circles we use all the time. So it's to iterate, obviously means to change, but iterate implies to make it better, to work on it, to iterate your idea and move it forward. I think that's a really healthy idea that we could all politically, creatively, in any way take about ourselves is you're going to be wrong a lot. But that being wrong doesn't mean you need to be canceled or you need to like be afraid that like this thing, you can be wrong a lot. But when you reinforce the idea of iterating, and are you iterating your life, you're admitting this I'm just in a constant act of trying to mold myself into a more positive future continually. I'm just trying to iterate this idea, or hey, I had this idea. Hey, it wasn't a very good idea. But now I can take that feedback, iterate it, make it a little bit better. Yeah, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Who cares? I'm better. New idea. And I think as a creative, like as a film producer, I'm doing this all the time. I'm working with really smart creatives like John McKeever and Shane Gillis, like guys like that, and doing like comedy stuff. And it's like, I have an idea, but like my idea is like here on the intelligent comedy spectrum, and their ideas are like here, and like I'm like, well, maybe I'll stop having ideas.
I'll stop pitching ideas. Let me observe for a little longer.
But like, who cares? Who cares if no one likes my idea? I don't care.
Right.
I'm just in this process, adding value to people's lives, trying to get better. And so I think iterating politically, creatively, it's a healthy way to view yourself as someone who you're not wrong. You're just in the process of iterating. If you can view yourself that way.
Sure.
Do you find that I know you mentioned that kind of doing some comedy stuff now. I want to get into that a little bit too in a little bit, but
yeah,
do you find that process changes at all? Like if you're in a kind of a, not that the Minimalist was a serious, super serious film, but versus, a documentary versus a comedy sketch. Do you find that process is different? Is it similar? Obviously it has similarities, but like, how is that process different and how is it the same?
Yeah. So quick context before I answer that question is we started I have two companies I own actually. We have a second company that's a comedy development company called Mad Brain. It's friggin' dope. So it's very new, very, very new. So we have a company called Mad Brain. And it's got a badass logo, dude. It's so awesome. I love Mad. I'm gonna get it tatted on me, bro. I'm not
Hell
even
yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah, I know. I'm all about it. So so we started a comedy company because Chris and I really want to start moving more to make like more fringe work that like isn't on the Booklight brand, but like is something that we're still interested in doing. We also have like lots of big brand clients that like we also want to respect their brands. If we want to make things that are more fringe comedy, we want to make sure that they're being protected by like Booklight is doing this kind of work, and that's great. And we can do other fun things that we're interested in too, like a horror film or something too, if we wanted to. But it's not the same as Booklight. So. Sure. Anyway, with that being said, we're developing with some content with some comedians in New York City and Philadelphia that we're really, really proud of. So with that being said, working on a more seriously toned documentary versus working on comedy work, from my seat as a producer, it's the same. Okay. My job as a producer is to take talented people, put them in roles of leadership, and do everything I can to take the ceiling off of them. So what am I doing to help make them more creative, to give them a better working environment, to make this a more healthy process, to help challenge them and make things better? But I think a lot of producers have this ego complex where, like this is really interesting. If you think about the timeline for anyone who's watching on the screen of a film, so here's the beginning, the pre-production, you have the idea, you developed it, you got it sold, you scheduled all the shoots, and now you're like here where you're in production, where you're shooting it. And then you go into post-production where you're editing the film and then it's delivered, right? So there's the whole spectrum of the film. A producer, I'm a part of every process. An actor comes in here, leaves, and gets all the fame, right? Sometimes producers have an ego complex where they get frustrated that they're not as well known when you saw the whole freaking movie through. This person came in and did X.
Right.
I'm really passionate about I don't need to like be known by anybody. I actually, in the current culture, don't really have any desire to be famous. I don't want my life micromanaged by every person on the planet. I'm not interested in it. So anyway, I say that to say, my job is to take talented people, put them into roles and do that. And so it could be a serious documentary about somebody trying to really take a deep look on minimalism. It could be somebody trying to create really, really funny comedy sketches. My job is to take people that I like and help create an environment that's healthy so that they can create to their ceiling. So in that sense, it's the same process. It could be a horror movie. It could be a romantic comedy. It could be a documentary. It wouldn't make a difference to me. To the creative, it's probably a very different process. But for me, it feels very similar.
Okay. Don't make a horror movie, because anything you make, I'm gonna watch, and I don't like horror movies. So
I'll make one for sure now.
Like now he has to make one.
Yeah, no, I have to make one. Yeah, I would love to make a horror movie. Oh my God, I would love to make a horror movie one day. I love horror films. I think they're so great.
Add it to the list.
I think it's one of the most underrated art forms of film because because what horror films accomplish, I love the horror genre, because you sit down and you think to yourself, I know this isn't real. And you're like, I'm going to watch it, and I know it's not real. And you start watching it and you're scared out of your mind. And the fact that with just a film screen, a director was able to take you on an emotional journey where you can't go to your basement for 3 days is like so impressive to me.
Why would I want to put myself in that position where I feel afraid to go
as
to
a consumer,
basement?
I agree with you and appreciate that. I'm just saying, as a creative, it's like an unbelievable magician where you're like, this is stupid.
Right.
And then someone does something, you're like, what?
Yeah.
And it's like your mind is blown, but you know it's not real.
Yeah.
Yet your mind is like spiraling. So I'm super impressed with horror in that way. I think it's a cool genre.
Yeah. I mean, I would watch your film. I'm not,
You wouldn't be
scared.
happy about it though. You wouldn't be happy about it.
I wouldn't be happy. I'd be angry. I would do it.
I also
Pay the
wouldn't be
ticket.
happy because Michael podcasts in his basement. If he can't go down there for 3 days, how are we gonna podcast?
Dude, my new goal is to put your whole podcast on blast for like 3 weeks just because Michael can't go to his basement anymore.
No.
I'm gonna make a horror film about podcasters who get murdered in their homes.
No, that's the worst,
Oh,
because that's
brutal.
realistic. That could happen. On a serious, on a pretty not serious but kind of serious note, Hillary and I listened to a book on tape about the Golden State Killer. Evil Has a Name. Good book, worth listening to. But like, I wake up sometimes at night at like 4 a.m. I'm like, still in my brain. I'm like, check the doors, make sure everything's locked. Is everything okay? It stuff sits in my head. It gets into my unconscious.
Art is powerful.
I don't like it. It is powerful. I can appreciate it, but I just don't like being scared. I don't know.
That's cool.
I'm with you.
It's not
I'm with
something
you on that,
I
Michael. I'm
like.
just a big pansy.
Yeah, big scared cat. Call me
Big
scared
scaredy
cat.
cat.
That's fine. You can
Yeah.
go watch your horror movie. I'll take it. I have Disney Plus for a reason.
Yeah, there you go. Watch Lilo and Stitch.
Mhm.
But yeah, I want to hear a little more about this. Remind me again the name of the comedy group. It's called
Mad
Yeah,
Brain.
so
Mad Brain.
yeah, so our
Yeah.
our company is called Mad Brain, but
Right.
I wrote it down.
we put out Mad Brain put out a YouTube sketch series called Gillian Keeves,
Gillian,
and
wait, what is it? Gillian Keeves?
yeah, go to YouTube and check it out. Yeah, Gilly and Keeves, Gillian Keeves, and so yeah,
Okay.
it's really really great. A couple really talented comedians that we really like. And yeah, man, it's been a real blast to work with them. We actually had and kind of don't have a lot of intent on making a YouTube channel. We're actually trying just to sell a show and make a show out of it. But we were curious about what the reception was going to be. So we decided to put it out, just like, because if it was bad, we'd be like, great, we can adjust and adapt and, change. But if there's an audience for this, we'd like to collect some, we'd like to understand that and collect some data, and it did very well. So that's good.
Yeah, I'm quickly looking up where that is sitting right now. Yeah, you're sitting at 200,000 views on the ISIS Toyota, which without some context probably sounds interesting, but I'd encourage everyone to go out there and listen to it or watch it because it's absolutely hysterical. And the other one, what was the title of the other one? It was Daycare for Uncle or something like that? Uncle Daycare?
Uncle Daycare. Yeah.
Uncle Daycare was
Yeah.
hysterical. They're both absolutely like rolling on the floor.
Thanks,
Hilarious.
guys. Yeah.
They're hilarious. But I think these videos kind of are on the, you talked about earlier, you want to be able to push the limits. You want to be on the fringe of comedy and kind of push your limits as much as you can. These videos kind of do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So what was your thought process making them?
Yeah.
Like
So
saying,
for,
go ahead.
No, for sure. Well, first, my answer is to be consistent with everything I've said so far up to this point, which is that give all the credit to the creator, director, and writer, John McKeever, who's the director of the film. If you don't know this, in one of the pieces is called Isis Toyota. It's about a guy whose family name is, his name is Bob Isis. That's just his family name before the terrorist group. And he's just trying to sell cars and he has these terrible employees. And that's just the concept of the sketch. The guy in the gold chain is John McKeever. That's the director and creator of the show. The guy in the gold chain. So, yeah, John is just a really talented writer. He's really kind of like famous in Philly, like a little bit. Like he's like a real Philly, like people love John McKeever in Philly and New York. And he's really a great, awesome guy who's just so talented. And he's an actor. He's been in a couple of episodes of High Maintenance. He's just, doing some of that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, he had this idea to make a sketch show that really targets the middle of America. It's not really trying to play a lot of sketch comedy right now. A lot of comedy is really just almost becoming parody of politics, where it's like it's only jokes about politics, and there's a place for that. That's fine and important. Actually, I think it's good that we use humor to critique our political system. So I'm all for political comedy. But I don't think we should have only political comedy. I think that you can just have stuff that doesn't do that. I think that when I was growing up, the heyday of comedy was like Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber, and like Caddyshack, and the new Bridesmaids, and like all these amazing work that was really apolitical in its concept. It was just great comedy work, and so I think we're trying to swing the pendulum back a little bit and make some of that.
Okay, yeah. When you say that, and I just whatever. The early 2000s was perfect for that. You had Wedding Crashers. We had Superbad in the mid to late 2000s. Just knocked out of the park. Those are just two that came to mind. But
Judd Apatow is a really important figure in a lot of that too. I mean, a really important comedy film producer who made a lot of those films. Yeah.
So then, can you say, are you moving in that direction towards having a YouTube show? Or are you going to be helping make more of those, more of his videos, or?
So we really believe in the project, and so we'll continue to make them. We already have a couple slated to go film this month, actually, go film some more. But it looks like we've got enough attention from a few of the right people that we might be moving towards maybe just selling the show earlier than I thought we were going to, which would be awesome. All that stuff is happening behind closed doors, and there's not really a big update on whether or not how that's happening. So I don't have a lot to share on that, but I think that we just believe in this and we had some good momentum behind it. And so I think it's also just something that, especially over like the holidays with Uncle Daycare, I was really proud of, because it's like everyone has this family moment of just trying to like handle these relatives who like are so extreme. And so I think it's just fun to make something that got such good feedback and like help people to make light of what was going to be a stressful Christmas with like the election and stuff going on. And so I thought that it was just fun to make that. So we'll keep making it. I believe in the project that it will live somewhere at some point in time. I don't know if the end will just be a YouTube show. I don't know if that's what I would predict it to be. But you never know. I think we just believe in it and just enjoy making that kind of stuff. So, at some point you when you start a film company, you're just doing corporate commercial work for a really long time. And you think to yourself, man, what if one day I could just make movies with my friends? And I think Chris and I crossed the threshold in 2020 where we're like, dude, we could just make movies with our friends. So why don't we just do that? And so I think that's what we really started to try and do.
I mean, that's a pretty cool thing to say when you're 28 years old and you now own your own company and have released a Netflix show. And you're like, just make our own movies with our own friends. That's pretty cool.
Friends.
I mean, as a friend of yours, I think that's something that's pretty cool, man. I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
I also
pretty
agree.
awesome.
It is pretty cool. If you need some more friends to make movies with,
if you ever need
an extra, I don't actually.
Oh. If you ever need, like, in the horror movie, Michael can be one of the one of the dead guys laying on the floor. He can be an extra.
Help with the horror film.
I would volunteer to be in the film if I don't have to see it, and I would even volunteer to be the idiot who does something stupid and is the first one to die.
Yeah, it helps to have somebody who's willing to get like really stabbed for real. It just adds to the dynamic. If you would be open to that, I'd love to have you and work with you. I think it'd be really great.
Since
and even if it's not on,
it has to be real.
It has to be. And even if you ever decide to do like an animated horror movie, you know how in video games they put a bunch of those little balls like for touchdown celebrations and slam dunks. I can put that on, and then I can get stabbed. And then you can use that as this is what would actually might happen.
Yeah, dude, we'll do the VFX, and then there'll be like this cool like fan lore about the show. That's like, no, they really stabbed him, and it'll be like, it'll just be like,
really, they stabbed him in the shoulder blade, and now he can't move his right arm up.
yeah, like
And-
that's what he gave to his art form. You know, like
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said about that. Yeah, dude.
And hopefully the knife will be nice and dull too, so it doesn't hurt too much.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
This is getting
yeah.
out of control.
I'm open to this. I'm open to
Be
this.
perfect. Okay, I actually have another question too. So this is back to your traveling comments. You said you traveled to Australia with a carry-on.
Yes.
How long were you in Australia for, and what did you put in that bag? Like,
Yeah,
what is so essential to Jacob Matthew that you need to bring it to Australia?
What are my GQ test essentials is what you're asking me? Okay.
Your what? GQ
so the
Essentials.
GQ essentials, never mind.
Okay.
Okay, so I went to Australia for a shoot with one of our clients. It was December 2019. So just over a year ago, I went to Australia. And this is all very pre-COVID. So it was December 2019. I don't know, dude. I just freaking like, oh, okay, no, I do know. Okay,
Clothes,
I pack this all the time.
toiletries. Yeah.
2 pairs of jeans, okay? A black pair of jeans and a light blue pair of jeans that I wear with everything. That's it. If I need to look nice, I can put my black jeans on I've done this before where I've had to be nice. I put black jeans on with a nice top, and I went to weddings, bro. Black jeans
Same.
are everything. So
jeans are great.
that's it. And then I pack a lot of black t-shirts, especially on film sets.
I don't think I've seen you not in a black t-shirt in probably since high school.
Yeah, dude. No, it's me. I've branched out a little bit more recently. Also, I think people will think that like I'm just like the minimalist. Like I wear black shirts like them now. No, you guys can attest. I've been wearing black shirts for forever, bro.
Forever. But to your point too, if you only have black shirts, then you have to spend zero time thinking about what shirt you need to put on.
Yeah, totally. And then also what's nice about a black shirt is like I can wear this and then just like throw like I actually think I have a bit of one. Like I can just throw like any button up over it, unbuttoned.
It looks fine.
And now I'm like ready to do something next.
Yeah. Now you're Canadian.
Now I'm Canadian, which I am Canadian anyway. So it's all
there you go.
It's all very real. Yeah. So anyway, a couple shirts, 1 pair of running shoes and workout clothes, and then a pair of white sneakers that work as my nice and on-set outfit. AirPods, phone, wallet, stuff, chargers. Passport in that case. I don't know, dude. That's it, bro. Toiletries, dude.
Nothing major.
What else do you need to bring?
Right. Unless
No,
it's going to be like cold or right.
Most of the time when you travel like that, all you're packing is more clothes.
Yeah.
You know? Like you don't.
But also, if you're traveling for a long period of time, you also in the modern day as well, you can be strategic about traveling to Airbnbs instead of hotels that have laundry units.
Laundry.
So, and you just do laundry while you're there. So like,
Absolutely.
There's lots of creative ways to. And Kate, who before we were married, traveled way more than me. I learned a lot of these little hacks from her too. Just little things about like get an Airbnb where you're where there's laundry. Like we went to this was a huge like vacation hack. A couple of years ago, maybe it was summer 2019 actually, summer of 2019 or 18. Kate and I, alongside her family, we all went to Greece. So I went to Athens, and then we also went to Santorini, which is like the very beautiful white with the blue roof, like mountainside place, which is like so expensive to stay in one of these like resorts. But we Airbnb'd in one of the houses on the side of the mountain.
So cool.
Dude,
So much
it was
cooler, too.
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It was like all of us splitting the cost of one little spot. Like I'm sleeping on a couch, but like whatever. And like, dude, it was unreal. So I mean, and everyone, millennials know this, but like the ways that you can hack traveling, especially when COVID lifts and stuff, like it's insane.
No question. Yeah, I mean, we were just out in San Diego this past week, did the same exact thing. We showed 6 people in an Airbnb. We all had our own bed or somebody had a couch, but it's like cut the cost by exponentially. And it just it's so accessible. And like you said, everyone knows that nowadays. But the fact that took so long is unbelievable. I mean, it's such an easy, simple idea that totally just changed the hotel and industry flipped upside down like overnight. It's unbelievable how many places you can go, you can stay, reduced cost, nicer. You have laundry, you have TVs, you have cookware to cook your meals, so you can save money there too. It's just, yeah, like you said, there's, and a lot of times it's away from where the hotels are, so it's away from the tourist traps. It's kind of in the actual community that you're there to visit anyways. So it's a no
Yeah.
brainer.
And not to full circle back to the minimalism conversation, but I was going to say too, is like when you're traveling, we're doing that. You still are, in some sense, you know, you could bring tons of stuff with you. Even if you're that person, you still are really living essentially minimally in that time, that you have these mountaintop fun
Totally.
experiences. And then you go home to all of your stuff and you're less happy, and you have to stop and go, hey, do you
Why is
see the
that?
dichotomy here?
Right.
You don't need these things to be happy. You need people that you love, and experiences, and moments where you can sit and be happy, and kind of almost in love with life a little bit. And you could do that through meditation and gratefulness at home. You could be
Right.
doing that at home. You could wake up and go, man, for you, it's like, man, you live in downtown Chicago. It's like you're growing up as a kid outside in the burbs, and you're like, man, one day, what if I lived in Chicago with all my buddies? How cool would that be? And that's your life.
Right.
It's like, I wanted to be a film producer. I live in Los Angeles. It's like, that's my life right now. And like, even when I wasn't in LA, it's like, I just live in an Airstream with my wife. It's like, anyone listening to this, it's like at any point in time, you can slow down and find things in your life that you're grateful for, even if life is really tough. And like, especially 2020, you lost your job. Maybe you're someone from like the Black community in America, and you're feeling like you're having a really, really intense time in American culture right now. It could be anything that you're going through. There's important times to lament and to heal and to grow and to go through things and to experience pain and loss. That's really important. But you also can take time to make sure you match that with saying, hey, these are the things that I have, that I have, I have these family members, I'm healthy, or I'm whatever. And you can find ways to find joy and happiness in your life. And there was a really, really cool quote I had heard recently, which is that, it must have been from podcast, but I thought it was just so cool, which is that it was Sam Harris. Sam Harris, I love Sam Harris. Sam Harris had made this comment. He goes, the great joke of life, the great punchline of life is that you can never become happy. You can only ever be happy.
Yeah. It's a great quote.
You'll never become happy. You can only ever be happy. Because even what is happiness? It's a chemical release to your brain that you have that. So, and happiness even only exists for a present moment. I think it was Sam Harris who made this example. Like, imagine you won the Academy Award. It's like this moment comes where you win the Academy Award. You walk on stage, you give the speech, and the second you leave the stage, you're like, man, I hope I said that right. Look, I mean, Jesus. Right. I just like had to know where a Netflix film came out, and now I'm 7 days removed from it. And it's like, I'm like in full blown work mode as if nothing has ever happened.
Right.
And so there is no moment where, like, I mean, I can attest to this. Someone who's listening has a big dream of their life, hey, I want to accomplish this thing. It's like, I worked hard and had a Netflix film come out, and I'm telling you, it was awesome. It also was a little bit anticlimactic, because like, it's not like there was a party. It was like, it's available to click on. It's not like the world celebrated my film. Right. It was like, well, it's one of the 10 films they released today, so there you go.
Yeah.
So I think there's that thing of like, you just have to sit down and go, there it is. Let me just take a moment.
Absolutely.
Appreciate this and move on,
Totally. And kind of tie that back into the film. It was spoken on a number of times, but just saying how, if you have this mentality of you're working towards this thing, and like, I need to have this iPad, that's what I'm working towards, because that's what Michael Stampa has, and that's what Jacob Matthew has, and that's what Michael Olson needs, because like, I just need to keep up with them. Then you get that, and then it gets normalized, and you need the next thing. And that happiness is there for a little bit, for a day or two, or for however long it is. Maybe it's a week or whatever. But then it just becomes normal, and then you get the next thing and the next thing. And it's a continued pattern that you're never going to reach the end of the staircase. You just continue to go forever. It's a treadmill. It's never going to stop.
And I really mean it when I say that. I used to have a lot of anxiety when I was a kid. I really dealt with having anxiety. I think a lot of millennials do, but I really did big time. And I really mean it when I say that I have easily the most stressful life I've ever had because of what my life is. And I have almost entirely like overcome and mastered my anxiety. I mean that as someone who's dealt with depression and has been very anxious. You can overcome that. I genuinely have had that journey. But one of the main reasons is I know what I can control. I've let go of what I cannot control. And I take moments to be grateful for what I have. And like, it is, I'm not kidding. If you can just find that pocket of, hey, I got rid of all my stuff. I moved into an Airstream. I traveled. The Airstream is stressful. It's like a project. It was breaking all the time. Like there was lots of stresses that happened with living in that thing that we built with our bare hands. But okay, all right. So today we gotta fix this thing. You do this, great. Wake up, you go to bed, you make this food. We didn't have a ton of money. It's like, we're just cooking at home in this tiny little kitchen that we made with like only a convection oven. Is the only, I haven't cooked in a real oven in years. I mean, I've only had a convection oven for, even in LA, like I just have a convection oven. We have an oven. I just only use the convection oven. So it's almost like, if you can just take that time to, I can control this. I can't control this. I have things in my life that I love and I'm grateful for. And I'm going to choose to spend energy on the things I can change and not spend energy on the things I can't. And, I want to be connected to friends and community. And if there's people that are not going through pain, how can I reach out to them and connect with them and give back to people that I love? You're doing that. I'm telling you, your anxiety is going to go, man. I mean, you just live in that pocket for a long enough period and get disciplined about how you think. You're going to, and I would also encourage you to take fast from social media, 100%. You will not, in the modern era, overcome your anxiety without taking fast from social media. That is a promise. That is a promise. You have to fast your social media every once in a while. Get rid of it for a week. You do that, whew, you will reset some endorphin, dopamine metrics in your brain that you need to reset. I promise you that.
No question. I mean, that can be that's obviously an endless discussion on the topic of
Yeah.
the impact of social media on whether it's 28-year-old, guys, or if it, more so on, younger kids and kids that are developing, and just how detrimental that is to just self imagery and growth. And it's obviously an entirely complex situation.
Who do you want to
But you're
control
right.
your happiness?
You're
Do
right.
you want you or the highest paid engineers in the
Right.
world?
Yeah, right. Literally. Correct.
Vying for your attention every minute for money. Or do you want you in control of your happiness? I mean,
Exactly.
come on.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sums it up perfectly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing that I came into this conversation midway. One thing that I did, and I don't consider myself an anxious person. I don't consider myself, I feel very, very lucky that I haven't had to really deal through that. I mean, I get anxious sometimes, but I don't have long-term anxiety. One of the things that I did once COVID kind of hit, I was talking to our friend Nick Koloff. He said one of the things that he did to help, settle himself and make himself more sane was he just disabled all of his push notifications except for the apps or the things that are, important. So his messaging apps, his phone app,
Good idea.
whatever. So he said that he's like, it's been so helpful. And I did the exact same thing. And I still don't have notifications turned on for any social media, except for a few people that I follow on Twitter who I want to be notified when they tweet, but no Snapchat. I don't have the Facebook app, no Twitter, no Instagram, none of that. I have the apps, but I have to actively and intentionally go onto them and look at them.
Well, and I'll tell you something
helpful for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that makes family members and sometimes friends frustrated with me, but I actually think the long term is better, is I'm not a great texter backer. Or like we have our group me. I'm the worst at the group me. I'm rarely, not because I don't love you guys. I think this is a thing I'm really proud of. I'm a very, very present person. For example, on my iPad, as we've been talking, a client asked to call me, but I'm with you guys. I'll talk to them tomorrow. He can get you tomorrow, bro. Like whatever you have to talk about, like I can get you tomorrow. Like I also know him, but it's like this isn't. We don't have a shoot tomorrow. Like I'm okay. Like I can text you back and get back to you. But I'm doing this same way. If I was with him, he would get all of my attention. When I'm at home with my family, my mom gets my attention. I'm not on my phone texting someone while I'm with you, unless it was Kate and she needed me. I would do it for my wife. But also, it would have to be an emergency. If she just needed something quick, I would still probably stay present with you. In the same way, I would do that with her if it was whatever. Maybe my partner gets a little bit of a curve on that. But with anyone else, but with anyone else, I'll get back to this person texting me. This does not tell me. My phone does not tell me who gets. Look at this. Look at all those notifications. This is not my decision maker. This is my decision maker. You know what I mean?
But
Anyway,
that's something that you should be proud of, because that is you're very much the outlier in
Yep.
our society today. Because I get to be transparent with you guys. I have sent a text message since we've been talking, which I'm not proud to
goddamn
say.
you,
Like, and I
Minimalists.
do have, just looking at my phone. Like, I am somebody who I have all these like notifications. I have
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 notifications, 2 different email accounts, 3 different social media platforms that had notifications on it. And it's like I am somebody who and this is not something that I'm proud of. I am the person that I get stressed out by seeing that notification bell. And when I wake up in the morning or just coming back from vacation and seeing that email thing grow,
yeah, dude.
grow, and somebody who has my work email on my personal phone, it does drive, whether it's a little bit of anxiety you're never really thinking about, but it just continues to build and build and build. So I think it's a good idea by Nick and by
But maybe
Michael.
my friend challenged
Yeah.
you on that is
Yeah.
because you think about, well, hey, but here's the deal. I don't want all those notifications to add up. I want to make sure I get back to that. But here's my challenge is you're giving everyone half of you.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I could just let you wait because you can be patient for fucking an hour.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And also then I'll give you all of me. Like I'll give you everything that I have and really pay attention to you. But I don't get to see you guys that often. And if I'm going to hop on a podcast with you, I blocked off this part of my calendar because I'm
Right.
doing this with you guys. You know what I mean? And
Totally.
so I think that's that thing where it's like, it is tempting to want to do that. But it's like when I was at some point during 2020 COVID time, it was right when I think COVID had first hit. Black Lives Matter thing was really going strong, and I was, part of it in whatever way I could be. And then at some point, that diminishing return moment came for me personally, where I went, I know I've done a part of this. I think I've been an ally. Who knows? We can only judge ourselves for what we can do. But at some point, I was like, I am slipping into an anxious, depressive place, and I know I am because this is just so much. And I'm also trying to make sure my business doesn't flounder underwater with COVID. I took a 2-month break from social media. I got rid of every app on my phone, and I wasn't supposed to be 2 months. I just got rid of it, and I just forgot to add them because my life was so much better.
I believe it. Yeah.
Them. And so it was just insane. I was like, oh my God, I can't even imagine. It actually was almost like I knew the film was going to start coming out. I was like, I need to start slowly entering myself back into this. But I'm already now just feeling the desire to do it again. Like I almost want to do it again in some way. I'm really hoping to do that again soon.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's one of those things too, where I think we've said the term a lot in this podcast, is being intentional about it. So making that decision to remove it. It's not one of those things where it's not a cognitive thought that I have. And we've said like this, it's 35,000, average 35,000 decisions we make a day. And obviously I am making that decision to pick this phone up and look at my phone. But I've done it so many times now that it's become habitual. Like, it's just like, oh, I see a little red number 1 or number 2 on this app. Gotta click it and open it. And it's not something that I want to do because I want to be present with you guys. I want to have this conversation. I don't get to see you guys very often, and I want to be present. But it just becomes so ingrained in my habit and my response to seeing that notification. It's just like pick up this rectangle, press the button, and see what the screen says versus actually being present, like you said, Jake, and give you my 100% attention versus giving it 25 over here and then being 75% present with you in front.
Yeah. Well, sorry, not to keep giving you these axiom tangents, but what you said reminded me of something else I've thought about a lot recently.
Yeah.
Which is also really quick. This is a funny thing. I'm being self-aware. Is I've learned that I'm a very intense person that people can only take in doses. And I think I'm just okay with that. I think I've just accepted that that's my deal, and I can live with that. I'm self-aware of that, but I can live with it. So anyway, what I was gonna say is I had this thought again. I've been thinking again. I'm in my brain doing this all the time, but I had this idea about, because I'm often the youngest person in the rooms that I'm in, and I don't mean that arrogantly. That's just been my life since I was a kid. I just was kind of I'm often feel young. I'm even young for our age group, like in our school. I just have always been younger, and I think I used to be really intimidated by that. And then all of a sudden, I started being in rooms with Joshua Field Milburn and Ryan McNemus and John McKeever and these really talented people, and I learned I realized something. So that maybe this is encouraging to any listener who feels intimidated sometimes, but your age means 2 things. Absolutely. Your age means you've had a certain amount of time to obtain information and develop habits. That's it. Your age means those 2 things. I've had 28 years to obtain information and develop habits. But don't hear what I didn't say. I didn't say if they were good or bad habits or good or bad information.
Right.
right?
Mhm.
You could be 50 and have obtained very bad information, as I believe we saw a little bit last night. You could have obtained bad information for a long time. You could have built bad habits. There are 50-year-old alcoholics, right? So one advantage to your youth is the exponential curve on better information and better habits. If you're the youngest person in the room, from a alternate reality perspective, this 50-year-old and you are in the same moment in time, gaining the same information, but you're 20 years ahead of that curve. So you are at an unreal advantage to be the youngest person in the room.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because so then it's like, also if you're young, you can switch those habits now, and Jesus, you can do whatever you want to for the rest of your life. And so I think that's that thing where it's like, when you're young, you just have like the exponential return on fighting to get better information and developing better habits is insane. The exponential return on that is ridiculous. And I think another thing is, I've learned now that I'm dealing with more executives, whether that's brands or filmmaking, is for as smart and wise as everyone thinks they are, all we are when we get stressed and are in stressful moments are our habits. If you're an asshole at home to your partner every day, what makes you think that you're going to be some fucking flower in an executive meeting?
Right.
You're just doing that. It's still you. Like, you could be home, you could be at the office, I could be with you. If I'm an asshole, I'm an asshole everywhere. But if you learn to start having better habits, you are doing that spreads to your life. And so I think that's even the iterating idea is like, you might have some bad information right now. I have some bad information. There are things that I don't know a lot about and are hurting my life. I promise you that's true. It's true of everybody.
Right.
I'll admit that is true of me. There's ideas I have that need to change. 100% there are. But I'm 28. I got time to change those, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I think that's what you were saying about the habit. It's like, great, you just have that moment now where you're like, oh, maybe I could change my attention. Dude,
Right.
like you could, like, and we all have the moments, but your age is only the amount of time you've had to develop habits and obtain information. And if you can click into that gear and just start grinding on those two things,
Yeah.
your life will change fast.
Totally. And obviously, it's like, I mean, it's like you said, it's an endless process. But the fact that you're being present and cognizant in identifying those things and wanting to better that self, and like you said, it challenged me to do that. And I, Michael, I challenge you to be better in X, Y, Z, and Jake be better in A, B, C. Just acknowledging those things and understanding that I need to improve on this, and like being present
Well, it's
and
nice,
like
it's
wanting
not
to get
judgmental
better.
of others.
Right.
It's intrinsic looking,
Right.
right? It's to yourself,
Totally.
Yep.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. All right, we have we're at an hour 40. This is the longest interview we've done in a long time. It doesn't feel like it's been an hour and 40 minutes. It's
Well, we can always
exciting.
split it into two.
Yeah, we may split it into two. But we've got some other miscellaneous, stupid, random stamp of thought questions.
I was gonna say,
Unless
these are
anyone has
stamp
anything
questions.
else.
I'm ready for the stupid sample questions.
Okay.
Here,
Anything else you want to?
let's round this to 2 hours and then call it.
Okay, that works for me. Okay, so we've got some, and I'm sure they'll spur into others. So the first one I'll ask is, are you, and we'll all answer to this question, are you an even number person or an odd number person?
What does that mean?
Just got to
Do you
answer, or what?
prefer even numbers or do you prefer odd numbers?
So like your lucky numbers, like what?
Interpret it however you may.
Odd.
Are you an even number person? You're an odd number person? Why do you say that?
Sure. Because I like the number 1.
Okay.
That's it. I don't have any other. Yeah, that's it. That's my
Okay.
gut reaction.
Okay. I'm definitely an even number person.
Why?
Because it's even.
This
It breaks into groups.
This is Stampa brain. Total Stampa brain right now.
No, maybe I
because
like
you
your
can break them into
rationale.
groups. Because even the lowest even number 2, you can make it 2 1s. Mathematically, it makes a little bit more sense.
I guess when
I like even numbers a little more, but I also, the exception would be 5s, because I think 5s are pretty jazzed, pretty cool. The 5s.
You can't play both sides, Stampa. Are you even or you're odd?
Yeah.
I know. But then the crazy thing is, my favorite numbers have always been odd numbers. So.
Are they prime numbers?
Yep.
Yeah.
37
figured.
and 19.
And I guess on that point, I did a thing growing up, and maybe this is like because this is like when I was like 7, and maybe it's because I grew up in a family of 4. But when you go to a Chili's when you're like 8, and you sit down to have like you eat your booth, you have 4. You can fit 4 easily. You get that 5th one, you got to pull up the chair. You got to have someone's got to sit in the
Can't
kind
sit
of
in that
awkward
booth
level.
Just
unless it's
leave
a
them in
big
the
booth.
car.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you go on a roller coaster, usually there's 4, like 2 and 2. Then you got the third kid. You got to put them in the car back, the car behind you.
Well,
The whole
hopefully
thing.
one of the
You're
adults
playing
will go in the other
favorites.
car, not one of the kids.
Oh, okay, maybe that.
Here,
that's the
I'm
case.
going to model iteration and say through this conversation, I agree that I think even actually is a better decision. I'm going to change mine to even right now.
Sorry, you can't. It's against the rules.
You can't. Yeah.
God damn it.
We already wrote it. We already wrote it down.
God dang it. In pen? God.
Yeah. Non-erasable pen either.
I think my gut
Non-erasable.
reaction would probably have been odd too, because like, I was always like a lucky number 7 guy as a kid. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
There you
That was the
go.
only reason why. But as the more we talked about it,
There's no wrong
Yeah.
answer.
no, there's a right or wrong, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay,
See,
well-
yeah, sounds like there's a wrong answer, Stanford.
Hey, I just said there's no wrong answer. Okay, so that was one.
I say 0.
0.
Oh,
Okay.
mind blown.
Well, we could get into the fact that 0 is not a number, and 0 itself is an absence of anything. But that just gets that's just another conversation.
I love Michael brain questions.
It's so
I'm ready.
stupid.
Let's next.
I feel like every couple of days I'll like think of something, or I'll be like laying in bed and something will come to me based on what I'm reading, and I'll just text Olson like 4 or 5 messages in a row, be like this, and I'm sure after the first one he's like, what? And then he'll get another and another and another, and he's like, oh, it's Chiowa stuff. He's just documenting this so that we're both well aware.
Hey, no, it's just like your scratch pad of ideas, and I'm always here for it.
Exactly. My second one is, how many messaging apps do you have on your phone?
Oof. Does that include the
Like-
text message one?
Absolutely. So this would include any app that you could
hold
use
on.
to message somebody else.
Does email count as one of those?
Can you message someone in an email?
I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you message someone at the fantasy football thing? I don't even know.
I would not
No, that
call
doesn't
fantasy
count.
football. That's not the
Okay.
primary function of the app.
Right. Okay. Got it.
That's a
All right.
good, that's a better
Mine's
one.
easy. It's. I think it's 4: text, message, email, Slack,
Yep.
and I'm gonna go with 3.5. The group me, only because it's currently on my phone. I delete it after I send messages every time because I don't like group me on my phone.
So okay, that's why. Okay, that makes sense, because every time for our different fantasy football league, so Jake's the commissioner of our expert
I'm a
league.
terrible commissioner, but yes.
You don't even have the primary form of communication that we use. So every time that we have it, I take a screenshot of the group. If someone has a question, I send it to Jake. He responds, and I take a screenshot of Jake's response.
I'm a
and put it back in the
terrible
group.
commissioner.
It's fun. It's all fun and games. You're not a terrible commissioner, by the way. Trevor's a good right-hand man for you.
I literally hired a vice president to do all
Vice commissioner.
commissioner-related things. This is how good of a delegator I am.
Oh,
I
man.
went, hey, Trevor, how would you like to be the VP? And he was like, done. I was like, great. You're going to manage trades and basic disputes. And he was like, great. And I was like, and so
That's a
There's
producer right
nothing
there.
else you have to do.
and I just take the
Yeah.
credit and move on. You know, it's great.
You manage the money.
All right,
I
so how many
promise the
messages?
money.
Yeah.
So would like a Snapchat thing count or no?
I think Snapchat could count as a messaging app.
I guess I have Instagram.
Sure.
I'll
Yeah.
Would that
DM
count
somebody
too?
through
Yeah, I guess
Instagram.
that
I
depends.
don't know. I'd give it like a partial. You can have like multiple.
I'm still saying 3.5. Instagram is not a purely messaging
So
app.
I'll count
I
it
have
out.
It's a part of
3 pure messaging apps.
Okay.
I'll count it out. So I obviously text message. I have Gmail. I have work email. I have the Facebook Messenger, which you know what? I don't ever use this. I'm gonna delete it right now.
Yep. Oh, that's a good thing. So one thing that I like about the new iOS is if you
Deleted.
don't use something.
I don't ever use Boomerang. Deleting.
Yeah, it shows like the little cloud thing. It removes it,
Yeah.
so it's not on your phone. So you know you're not using it. So you can just delete it.
You know what? There we go. I just got rid of a
Yeah.
whole page of stuff.
Love it.
Dude, I want to get rid of stuff now too.
Would
Man.
LinkedIn count? Because like that's messaging or no?
No, I don't think so. I think that's.
I don't think
it's
so
just
either.
like-
But I want to.
Is it shameful that I'm about to delete the Pizza Hut app?
Yes.
You have
Very
the
shameful.
Pizza Hut app.
Yeah, I do.
It's okay. Okay,
So
so
I
what do we
think
have for
it-
you, Olson?
So I have my text messages, my Gmail, my work email, and I just deleted that Facebook Messenger. But I did have that. So I did have 4. Now I'm down to 3.
You have GroupMe.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. So 4.
I was like, I know you have GroupMe because I
Duh.
we
Yes.
talk to them all the time. All right. I have text messages, just iMessage. I have a messaging app called Signal, which is supposed to be like more secure. Like they don't keep anything. Like the encryption itself is not stored anywhere.
Okay.
Like they can't store it. So I downloaded it because it sounded interesting. I haven't really used it. It's 2. I have Gmail. It's 3. I'm deleting the Facebook Messenger app. I can't. What the
Oh, it's stuck. It's running your life.
delete app. Delete. So I got 3. And then I have GroupMe, Slack. That's 4 or 5. I got Discord, which I don't know if that's
Oh, I guess I have.
really,
I think I do. I still have that on my phone.
that's 6.
Yeah, I do have Discord on my phone. It's more like
And then I have
Dude,
work
you got
email,
so
7.
many more than me, bro. I do not have that many messaging apps, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like Discord's more like
7.
I use it more for like calls than actually
Okay.
like
That's actually true because
Yeah.
we're gonna use it for a D&D, Jake. So I'd say I have 6.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah, that's true. I guess I have that
But
on
that's
my.
not really a messaging app; it's a calling app.
Yeah.
No, like Zoom, I didn't include in that.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
Yeah, no.
Right.
I wouldn't include
Yeah.
that.
Skype. No.
Yeah. Anyway,
There you
so I
go.
have
Well,
6.
6.
Yeah, I have 6.
That means you are the weakest link. Goodbye.
Or the strongest link because I have the most ability. To
Yeah, but the
connect
theme of the
with
show, Michael.
it is minimalism.
Minimalism.
Come on,
Yeah.
man.
Well, I love messaging apps.
Yeah, okay,
Are they
then
all
fine.
adding value to your life, Michael?
Yeah,
Are they all adding value?
They're all adding value to my life. Okay, so the last question I have for this, and we can talk
It's
about
gonna
other
be
stuff.
embarrassing for me.
No, it's okay. Because I don't. Okay, so this is about reading. That's the
Okay.
focus of the question. But I'm not trying to attack people for not reading because I read 2 books last year. Period. I'm not a strong reader. I'm trying to get better. January is usually a month where I knock out 1, and then February through December is the second one. Like everybody else. If you were, let's say, not locked in a room, but you were in your living situation, you had nothing to do for a month except for your normal daily functions. So eat, sleep, use the restroom. You can exercise if you want to, but any of your other productive time had to be spent reading or just sitting. How many books do you think you could read in 1 month? And we'll just say, not saying the books are 800 pages or 50 pages,
A typical like 200-page
250,
book.
350 page book.
I got my answer. Mine's easy.
How many?
1.
1.
I read a lot. I am a slow reader. I have always been a slow reader. It is one of my greatest weaknesses when I was going through school. I got very bad grades in English because I was a terribly slow reader, had ADD. I've been a slow reader, but I love reading. And I also have just learned to take my time instead of doing myself as slow. So it's not that I'm a slow reader. I just take my time and really make sure I'm consuming it and appreciating it and like thinking about it. Because I'm also almost always reading psychology or business books. Like that's almost all. I'm literally sitting here with 30 books around me right now, and because I'm moving some stuff back into my office. And let's see, Team of Rivals, the Abraham Lincoln one, Profit First, Good to Great, Brene Brown's Dare to Lead. I only have leadership development books and psychology books around me. But I'm slow, dude. I go through them slow. So 1, easy.
One book in a month.
I would read 1. Yep.
There you go. My dad's getting ready to publish a leadership development book. When he gets done,
Really?
I'll send one to you.
Ooh,
I'll
send it
take
to
one
me.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll pay for it, but
Can you make sure
I'll-
mine arrives just before
Yes.
Stampa's arrives? That'd be
Yes,
great. Thanks,
absolutely. Actually, that reminds me of. I don't think it's not unnatural to be a slow reader. I know that I was listening to a podcast recently that Matthew McConaughey was on, and he was
Yeah.
specifically saying kind of how people were asking him, did you grow up reading? Are you a reader? He's like, no, I didn't really grow up reading. We were kind of like, our mom shoot us outside, go play, in the mud, play in the dirt, go play basketball, go get in a fight, whatever. And he was saying how that's not to say he doesn't enjoy reading, but he's just saying how he would read like Emerson's essays, and it would take him like years to read because he'd read like 2 sentences or 2 paragraphs, and his like mind would be blown. He's like, I got to go out and apply this to life and like see how this impacts my day-to-day operations. And then he would go back a month later and start 2 more paragraphs. And
sorry, not remember. I was saying
Yeah.
I have a great example of those. I have a lot of books I haven't finished. Not
Oh,
because I'm not
absolutely.
going to finish them, but like for example, the second that 2020 happened, the Black Lives Matter movement started moving, and I was, we're building this company, lots of capitalism, socialism stuff is starting to go through. I just bought a copy of the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I've never read about communism before from like the scripture of communism. I'm not a communist, but I'm not afraid about reading it. So I got it. I also got Augustus Aurelius's Meditations. And so I like was getting these like some of these books. And like I've gone through them slowly. I haven't finished either of them, but like I love having access to them because if sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to have a socialism, capitalism, like deep dive in my brain just privately. I can like get good to great and get like a business book. And I can get the Communist Manifesto and just like compare them and think about how I'm equitably building a business. And it's like, but I'm not going to sit down and just read the Communist Manifesto in a day.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? So anyway, that's a good example.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw this on the board, Michael, and I was trying to think, and I guess I was thinking more of kind of like if you gave me Harry Potter or something, what could I actually read?
That's fine.
Yeah. I'm gonna say more than one, but I think that I could do like I couldn't do like a book in a day. I know I don't have the attention span for that. I could not do that.
No.
So I think if I was like, and I'm thinking like if I'm reading something that's super thought provoking and like kind of what I was saying yesterday, it took me a long time to watch even just less than an hour documentary of Jake's because I had to take notes and like think about things. So it took me I'm not sure how long it took, but it took a while to finish it. So if I was reading something super thought provoking, it would take me. I wouldn't finish one in a week. But if I'm reading something short and sweet, I could do that maybe in 2 days, 3 days. So maybe a conservative thing would be like 2 a week, so 7 or 8. But again, it would depend on the genre and what I was actually
That's
reading.
great. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I mean,
That's great.
And
you have full opportunity. You have full ability to choose your books.
and
Just not green eggs and ham. Only once.
I haven't read 7 or 8 books in a long time, so it's not something that's happening right now. I promise you. But that's if I had nothing else to do and I couldn't go outside or see anybody. If I was locked in this
Yeah. I mean, you
apartment
could go
like I
outside,
had
you
been
could
for the last.
exercise and stuff, but
Yeah, no, right. But yeah,
Right.
I don't know. It's a guesstimate. I don't know. How about you?
I think that I would put my number around 8 to 10 over the course of a month, given the fact that I have nothing else to do to apply my brain. Can't do anything else. So, I could sit down and just think, or I could, read a book.
Yeah.
And I come at that from the standpoint where I'm also a very slow reader. It takes me a long time to get through, books that I'm reading. I oftentimes find that I'll get a half a page or a page or 2 pages in, and I wasn't paying attention. Like I was just scanning over the pages, and I don't know what happened, so I have to go back and reread.
I'm terrible at that too.
It's bad. But
Me too.
when I find a book that I am actually enjoying or a subject that I'm enjoying, I like to read. Like I like to kind of dive in.
Yeah.
And what I've been reading recently, this is going to sound so lame and like such an old man. I read a book about a ship, literally a ship, and submarines that were attacking ships. And it wasn't just about that, but it was very well worded. It was it's called Dead Wake, the last crossing of the Lusitania, which was the submarine attack that basically pulled America into World War I back in 1915 when it was attacked, and they entered in 1916, cool. And etc. But the way that it was written was thought-provoking, was very interesting. It's by Eric Larson, who wrote Devil in the White City, and he's got like 6 or 7 other books. I've read half of them. But I found myself the other night reading it, and I was about 150, 200 pages from the end, and I just read until I fell asleep. I got like 150 pages done over the course of 3.5 to 4 hours at night. And I was like, that kind of stuff that when it's written well, I dive into it and I pay attention. But then I've also read another one of his books. It took me 3 months to read.
Yeah.
It's kind of dull, kind of bland. And I think I would want to mix that with Jake. I also tried to start reading some more like, leadership development, businessy, style books, not necessarily hardcore. Here's how you, operate and operate a business, not textbook. And I don't think you're reading textbooks either.
I am reading textbooks, bro.
Oh man.
Dude, I just bought this, dude. It's business structures. It's just a book that I fucking bought this, dude.
Oh man. I love it. See, but now you get to read it because you're applying it to your everyday life. And your ability to apply it means you will be more or less profitable. Not necessarily, but it will help construct the way that you run your business. Where when I read that kind of stuff in business school, if we weren't applying it to active projects, it was like, what the hell? I'm not going to.
You know what's funny? My father-in-law is a professor, and he made this really wise comment to me. He's been teaching for forever. He's a doctor of psychology, and he made the comment that in my undergrad, this is him talking. The quote is, in my undergrad, people were giving me answers to questions I didn't have. In my adult life, I started seeking answers to questions I did have. Yeah. And I think that's one thing that's really interesting is like, you know, especially with even the US education system, is that it's just force feeding kids answers that they don't have questions to. And then you become an adult and you start to get curious about things that you're really passionate about or think you're talented at. And now you love learning because you have questions and getting an answer to a question is so fun.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a very wise statement.
It is.
There's been a lot of this. I'm loving this. In the last 2 hours, we've had a lot of wise statements from Mr. Jacob Matthew and his gang.
Oh shucks.
and not to cut this short, but we almost are exactly 2 hours. And I know Jake, you probably got
short. It's been 2 hours, bro.
I mean, we could literally talk for the rest of the night.
Your listeners are like, Jesus Christ! I wish you'd cut it short an hour ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I didn't want to cut you off, so I probably should have said, but you probably want to get home to your wife and like get on to work and stuff and whatever you got to do.
I gotta go get groceries. I'm going to get groceries and then going home. We're gonna look through we're moving. We're gonna look through the apartments Kate just picked out, and we're gonna go see like 5 of them on Saturday.
Nice.
And then yeah, man, I'm pumped about it, dude.
Cool.
It's the first time I'll live in a spot that like feels nice. I've never lived in a space that felt nice.
When you say nice, you mean like feel like home? Like what do you mean by nice?
No, meaning like that didn't feel like a shitty Roman Philly or like.
So just nice.
Like literally just not bottom barrel.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in like Philly or like LA and like, you know, expensive places. I mean, to be clear, I should say that my Airstream was like felt like home, but like it was still a handmade Airstream by my wife and I. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, she's really talented, so it was cool, but I don't know if it was like, you know, I don't know. It's still a handmade Airstream. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's the first time I'll like have like an apartment that I'm like, this feels like cool. Like this is great.
Yeah, got it.
I'm pumped about that.
Cool. Well, we can let you go so you can get all fired up about that and get your groceries.
To any listener listening to this who's got made it this far somehow, these two dudes are the realest dudes. I've known them for a long time, and it's cool when people are who you hope they are, and these two guys are like that. So
you're the man, dude.
Jake.
And hey, like I said at the beginning, we are so proud of you. This is an awesome thing. You're gonna continue to do great things, and we appreciate you spending 2 hours. Again, probably twice as long as you wanted to talk to us, but we appreciate you taking time to catch up, man.
This added a lot of value and joy to my life, so it's fun to do with you guys.
We'll do another Pringles challenge sometime soon.
Yeah, dude, in friggin' March, bro. Let's do it, bro. I'm ready.
All righty.
March and May.
All right, later, dudes. Bye.
Cool. Guys. All right, see you, Jake. Thanks so much, buddy. All right, peace.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, good work.
Yep, I'm going to end the recording.